Hello, everyone. Welcome to Paintball Passport. This is the Traveling International Paintball Story podcast. I'm your host, Joe Barrett, and soon I'm going to have on the show my good friend Zyzek from Paintball Nerd and Go Sports. He's the fucking man. I've been on the show a few times recently, but I've been really looking forward to talking with this man more long form and getting his story rather than just sharing my own with him. We don't really have sponsors yet, but this show is brought to you by Labs, and that's the company I work for. Endless Paint Club is the program that I am running. So if you guys are wondering what that's about, that's me spearheading the idea. Normally I'm just kind of joking and funny and sarcastic about it, but on a serious note, the company is owned by a bunch of paintball players, and that includes me working for them, and we just want to give back. You can't tell me that your body doesn't hurt after playing paintball. I've been playing it for 20 something years now, and it does make you sore. And a lot of the way I play through all those pains and injuries and surgeries that I should have gotten, but I don't get, is microdosing THC and CBD in a full spectrum blend. I'm not buying no dog shit opiates or prescription drugs, and I'm also not buying dog shit CBD at some gas station. I'm using the highest quality there is. I can promise you, highest quality there is. Microdose, Lumi gummies. These are, low sugar, nothing artificial whatsoever, gluten-free, organic. It is the best shit you can find, and I promise you, you will feel better physically and mentally. So sign up, and I will approve you. If you're a paintball player, I want to help you feel better. Endlesspaintclub.com. Aside from that, this show is brought to you by, not really anyone, honestly. Shout out to Infamous Paintball and Pro DNA. They're not sponsoring the show yet, but I love them. And Trav and Callie and all those guys do a lot for me. So I'm going to say they're bringing this to you as well. And yeah, I don't know. Shout out to Yingling. That's not a sponsor either, but I hope to get them in the future because Yingling is what patriots drink. If you're going to drink a beer, you may as well drink one that was invented way back in the beginning years of this country. I mean, the forefathers were drinking Yingling when they were fighting off the redcoats and winning our independence. So thank you, Yingling, for not necessarily sponsoring me, but making a good, affordable lager that keeps me feeling patriotic. Anyways, let's get to the show. Zyzek, my brother, welcome
Hi,
to
Joe.
Paintball Passport.
Yeah, I feel great to be here. Young Ling, that's a great shout out. They're the oldest brewery in America. Did you know that?
I did. I am very educated in Yingling, and
Says on the bottom.
yeah, did you happen to go and tour the Yingling factory in Pottsville, which is only about 30 miles from the Philadelphia event
I have not.
this year? You have to go. It is right
Have to
near
do that.
NXL Philly. Yeah.
Young Ling. When the Bud Light, when everyone started boycotting Bud Light, um, I was one of them, and I drank Young Ling instead.
Ooh.
It's refreshing. It's crisp. I don't know if it's as crisp as a Bud Light. I'm thinking about ending my boycott because Bud Light's so delicious. But Youngling is a good beer. Yeah.
Okay. You know what? I am one of those people who is never going to try to convince anyone else of anything, but I guess we'll agree to disagree here because I feel like unless Bud or Bud Light or any of those are ice cold, they are undrinkable, almost watery beers to me.
Yeah, it's refreshing.
I'll say my bias is I like a rich, flavorful beer. You can't drink as many Yinglings or, like, let's say Guinness as you can Bud Light or Coors, but I like that it's delicious and it's that amber lager flavor, but it's still about that same price as Bud Light. So it's always been my go-to beer. My dad was always drinking it when I was a kid, so I was raised looking for Yingling.
Have you ever had a Taiwan beer? It's called Taiwan beer.
I want to say I have once because I go to like these Bevmo like bottle shops and I try beers from all over the world, but I couldn't be 100% sure.
What was the beer that was really popular in Thailand?
Chang,
Chang beer.
Chang beer. Yep.
Chang beer is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as you said Thailand, but you know what the problem with the Chang beer is? I forget what it is. It's brewed with like one extra thing that Americans aren't used to. So your first couple times out there drinking it, you get what they call the Chang over.
Mm. I got a Chang over once, and
Yeah.
it wasn't because of Chang. Well, I got Chang, and Devin Stutz, who works at Dye, I was living when I lived in Taiwan. He was my roommate, one of my roommates, and he put a foam killer in my beer. You know what a foam killer is?
No.
It's a shot of liquor. So he
Ooh.
put a shot of vodka. He had the bartender put a shot of vodka in my
Oh,
Chang beer. It could have been a Taiwan beer, but he put a shot of vodka in there, and I didn't know it. I didn't taste it. I just drank it. I just drank one beer that night, and I got hungover. And I was like, "What happened? Like, I just drank one beer." And he's like, "I gotcha." He told me after.
oh man, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, yeah.
I got a Chang story too, actually. The very first time I was in Thailand was 2011 for PALS Bangkok.
Mhm.
I was with Buddy Bauer and Shockwave Canada. And, there was a few of us US guys and a few well-known Canadian players. And that was what set me off on the whole obsession with traveling and international whatever. Anyways, we get there the first day. Probably doesn't help that, it's a really long flight over there. So you're kind of like already jet lagged and not feeling great. And we were like, fuck it, waste no time, right? We've never been here before. Let's go out and do shit. And we went out in nightlife mode. Like we went out at 10 o'clock and I only had a few Changs, like three or four of them, but with some drinks. Like we would get shots at each bar and whatever. And it's when Chang mixes with alcohol, I think, like you said, that's when it gives you the Chang over. So
Mm.
we're having a great night. We're wiling out, it's not even a PG rated night. It's one of those classic fun Thailand nights. But I
What is
remember
it
we
rated?
are. it's
Arr.
it's Thailand, but we get in at sunrise. I remember the sun comes up. We come back to our hotel, the Palazzo, beautiful, like five-star hotel that's like $30 a night. Shockwave got for us. Go to bed after eating a bunch of pizza we brought back from a local Pizza Hut-ish knockoff with stuffed crust pizza, and we did not wake up the next day. Like we went to bed at 7 a.m. And then I remember like kind of waking up to go to the bathroom and it was dark out already. I'm like, oh my God, I think we slept through the whole day, but I feel like dog shit. And I went back to bed and we woke up the following day at like 8 or 9 a.m. We woke up and it was like that moment in Pineapple Express where we all looked at each other and were like, wait, we slept for like 26 hours, man. What the fuck?
That's great.
Yeah. So
That's a good one.
yeah, the hangover is real. It wasted one of our 14 days, but anyways,
Yeah, good story is worth it, right?
yeah, very true. Slept like a rock, but I was going to get right into like your favorite travel adventure, but I was just listening to one of your shows, and I didn't know that you actually lived in Taiwan until that show. So I think that'd be a nice thing to talk about, like to get started. You talked a little bit about there, but yeah, dude, paintball brings us crazy places. It's our passport to the world, and for you,
Sure.
it brought you to Taiwan. So first of all, for anybody who didn't listen to that show, tell me like how that came about.
Sure. So I was doing sales for Dye at the time, and this was it was 2009, um, and is reaching the end of the year, and they're like, "Hey, we need help in our Dye Asia division, which is based out of Taiwan, Taichung, Taiwan.
Yeah,
Do you want to go over there for a year and grow the market, go to events, and be the guy?" And I was, young guy, and I thought living a year in Taiwan, I don't have any friends there, it's gonna be rough.
Hmm.
And they're like, "Oh, we're gonna send Devin Stutz out there with you, and you'll have another roommate, Jeremy Clinsmith." Uh, I was like, "Ah, it's still, that's like 2 people." But I decided to go, right? It's for the experience. My mom was telling me, like, "If you have an opportunity to live abroad, do it because you'll learn more at, doing that than you will at any university. Go
100%.
travel and learn about other people." So, being young and immature, I reluctantly said yes, and I should have been a hell yes. Should have been a hell yes, but it was a
Hmm.
reluctant yes, because I love San Diego where I lived, but I moved out there to Taiwan, and it was like immediate culture shock. I'm the only person that looks the way I look there,
Yep.
um, and tattoos are not frowned upon, but criminals have tattoos there, and
Yep.
that's not a stereotype. That's just a reality of their culture. Like, you don't
Hmm.
get tattoos unless you're a criminal. I think it's more widely accepted now, but when I was there, it wasn't. And dude, it was the craziest year of my life because I experienced so many amazing things, but I was also at the time missing home. I was homesick and complaining a lot, like, "Oh, this is not like San Diego. People stare at me here, and I don't like this. I don't like that." And for anyone who's listening to this that has an opportunity to travel or have an experience where you're living abroad, be in that moment, live in that moment. Uh,
100%.
Recognize, wake up, look where you're at,
Yeah.
look where you're at, and embrace it. So that's one thing that I wish I did is embraced it more, like just embrace living abroad more instead of missing home so much. But I still got to experience amazing things. So, man, I don't know where to start. I can tell you a story about when I found out tattoos were not like a cool thing there.
Please.
Um, I lived in this big building, like big apartment complex with 4 towers and a courtyard in the middle. Beautiful apartment. Di really took care of me there. And so I get in the elevator one day to go down to work, and a small child, maybe 7, 8 years old, is in there with his mom. And the door opens. I begin to walk into the elevator, and as soon as the kid sees me, he screams. He screams, and then he goes to the corner of the elevator so he can't see me. Like, just kinda like, out of sight, out of mind, I'm gonna hide from this guy.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm like, "No, no, it's okay. I'm nice. I'm nice. I'm nice." And I'm trying to, like, console this kid that's scared of me, and his wife is like, or his mom is, like, kinda looking at me like, "Don't get near him. Don't touch him, you evil man." So, that's when I was like, "Wow, like, maybe I should wear long sleeves," you know? So I
You're
don't, like,
scared of your
freak
gut.
out my neighbors, you know? So that's when I learned that lesson. You know, no one no one speaks English there.
Oh,
They don't
really?
they don't really they're not interested in really trying. Like, you are in their country. Like, learn Mandarin or you're gonna have a tough time.
I didn't
So,
know that.
yeah,
Okay.
dude.
You think it's
It's
still
all
like that now?
it's tough to say. It's been so long, right? It's been over 13 years,
Yeah.
14 years since I've been there. So, maybe they speak more English, but for the most part,
Yeah.
you have to figure out the essential things to say. If you're getting in a taxi cab, you let it and you want to go travel, you better learn how to say high speed train in Mandarin, which is Gautier.
Mhm.
So, and I don't even know if I pronounced it right there, but something like that. So, and ordering food, you kind of have to use like this like infant's level of like sign language. Like, if you want beef, it's like if you
On
want
the
chicken, it's
menu?
like, you know.
Yeah.
So, dude, it was just a crazy experience, moving somewhere where, here in America, I'm kind of racially ambiguous,
Mhm.
and in Taiwan, I am 100% a minority.
Yes.
I'm there, and like people like you are different.
Yeah.
They had some Westerner owned businesses. Like, some guy went there and built a diner. I think he was Canadian. They had a bar that was owned by Canadians called Foo Bar, which was near my apartment. So, they had some creature comforts for me, but like other than that, dude, it was a huge step outside my comfort zone. But great times too, man. Great experiences,
I'm
great
sure.
smells. You ever smell stinky tofu?
I can't say I have. Not stinky tofu.
Well, that maybe that's not what they call it. Maybe they just call it tofu. But in the States, tofu doesn't smell like that. It doesn't smell at all. And
You're right.
here, in Taiwan, they cook it on the streets and it smells kind of like this feet vinegary smell for blocks. Like you smell it from far away. And the first time I
Huh.
smelled it, I was like, "Man, what is Devin, what is that?" He's like, "Oh, that's the stinky tofu. They love it here. They love it." I'm like, "Oh man, that's nasty."
Weird.
Walking around the streets, smelling fish everywhere. Pollution's
Open
really bad.
open fish markets too, right? Like just fish hanging, that type of thing.
Actually, the open fish markets don't smell that bad. It's when
Hmm.
go out into the city and it's like, you got maybe a seafood restaurant and you go behind there and it's like, what the heck is going on here? So it's like walking through the seats, the streets of Taiwan has lots of smells. Everyone
Yeah.
wears masks because there's lots of pollution there. This is before COVID.
Hmm.
Everyone was wearing masks because the air quality is so bad. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So, but dude, can I tell a story about when I went hiking in Taiwan?
You absolutely can. I'm looking for all your best stories, so please continue.
So I think it was called Daikun Mountain, and I was going with a friend. She's like, "You want to go hiking?" And I was like, "All right, sure, let's do it." And she's like this outdoorsy person, like really adventurous. She was Canadian, and and like let's go on an adventure. So I was like, "Sure." And I'm wearing shorts and running shoes and a t-shirt. She's got like yoga pants on and like this like long sleeve, like kind of rash guard type fitness apparel. And so we start hiking up Daikun Mountain, and I'm feeling like these little tickles on my leg, like the whole time. And I'm just kind of ignoring it. It's like probably just sweat dripping down my leg and making me tickle or itch. So I didn't pay much mind to it. And then the whole way down, I'm doing the same thing. Like I'm just feeling like these little things on my leg. And towards the end, I just happened to look down and there was a flea, like the size of a pea.
Ooh,
That's a big flea.
that's a
Okay,
huge flea,
fleas that I'm used to in the States, you can barely see them. They're like a tiny little black speck,
like a dot.
and if you squish it, you're not gonna feel it. Like
Mhm.
it's that small, dude. These fleas, like I could see their teeth, like they're just
Oh,
enormous. And what was tickling my legs the whole time, all over, was not sweat. It was like these gigantic fleas eating my flesh.
oh my God.
So my
Jeez.
legs are itching. I'm like, what the heck's going on? How many times did I get bit? It's the whole hike. This is happening to me. I'm feeling this. So I go home, I take a nap, I wake up, and Joe, you can't see like a single inch, a single centimeter of non-bitten leg. Like
Oh my God.
from my shorts all the way down to my ankles where my socks were, it is covered in these
100%.
giant bites. Like
Whoa.
100% all covered in bites. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm probably gonna get some kind of crazy disease from this." Like
Mhm.
there's hundreds of bites on my legs, both of them. It looked like I had like leprosy the next day. So this was so bad that you ever scratch a dog's leg or their belly and their leg kind of like goes like that?
Mhm.
That's actually I learned that's involuntary. And I learned that in the shower. I would put the hot water shower, like the hot water, shower head, I'd put it and spray my legs because the hot water felt so good on the bites because they itch so bad. But when I did that, my leg would do the thing that dogs' legs do. Like it would tremble like do 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 from itching so bad.
Oh my God.
So so and I feel bad. I kind of like cursed my friend for this. Like, you didn't tell me there's fleas, and she didn't know.
Yeah, yeah.
But but that was like a gnarly experience where I saw this incredible view on top of this mountain, and the memory of that kind of got overshadowed by my flea attack.
Man, I'm sorry to hear that. That sounds miserable, and hopefully it didn't ruin too many days afterwards, right?
Oh, dude, weeks for weeks. My like again, like there's no normal colored skin that you could see. It was all bites.
Yeah,
So it was like, I'm putting like this Taiwanese green oil on it and everything. Like
yeah,
it
some
was
type of
it was
aloe for the itch.
yeah.
Dude,
You ever have any foreign bugs get you?
yeah, I have. I have a few stories. The one I have similar to that was after a Mexico tournament with my buddy Harrison and our friends Buckley and a guy named Goon up here in the Northwest. We went to Utila, which is the scuba diving training capital over here on the Western Hemisphere. It is a island off of Honduras. If you want to get certified at the cheapest possible price, it's just an island of like cool little scuba shops. There's maybe 3,000 people on the whole island. Half are locals, the other half are dive masters and dive instructors. And one of the nights about halfway through, I stayed out with a few people from my particular boat. Like you just kind of chill with your dive class because you're on the same schedule for 2 weeks straight. You know, you're up early taking tests and doing a lot of written work and book stuff, and then you go out for 2 to 3 dives, and then you come in by like 6 o'clock, enjoy the sunset, and then weirdly enough, you all stay up drinking Honduras beers and like partying the one little like night strip of stuff for until anywhere from like midnight to we're always like, okay, we're gonna be in by like 11 midnight. It ends up being like 3 a.m. and then you pop up hungover to then go learn how to deep sea scuba dive the next day at like 7 a.m. It's stupid. It's a weird culture on this island where you're like, we should not be like still drunk or whatever when we're diving 100 feet down. This is stupid. But anyways, one of the nights we're out and we're like, I'm with this one very cool German girl that's like, I know this part of the island that has a cool beach and the water there is different over on this side, moonlight, whatever. We're sitting on the beach, just hanging out, drinking the beers. And when we're walking back to like meet people at the little party bar that's kind of like a mini club, we're like kind of itchy. And then we get into the light and we look down, same thing. Our fucking legs and our forearms, everything exposed was red bumps from not fleas, but like these tiny micro sandflies. Like you didn't see that you were in a cloud of bugs, right? But we were just getting fucking eaten alive sitting on the sand at night. And then we came in, they're like, oh yeah, you don't go to the beach when the sun's down. Like that was stupid of you. And we're like, oh my God. So
Thanks for
yeah,
telling me.
the only time that we would feel good was when you were diving. Like at least you were way down in the ice cold water. But during the daytime, like just itchy as a motherfucker from 1,000 bug bites.
Sandflies. That's yeah. And any bug that like gets its sustenance from human blood, I'm not a fan. Leeches, ticks, fleas, mosquitoes,
Mosquitoes.
just go to hell, all of you. You know.
Agreed. It's I get it. It's like the circle of life thing. Like they are food chain for something, but I feel like
Sure.
there's enough flies and other bugs to feed birds and bats. Like why on earth, if there is a creator or whatever, why mosquitoes? Why any of these things that suck your blood and then could give you horrible diseases? It's fucking ridiculous, dude.
So I've looked into this because like like it's like why do these creatures exist? So mosquitoes is one of them I looked up. It turns out they're essential to the environment. Stupid mosquitoes. Not only are they food for creatures, mosquitoes are the tiniest pollinators, believe it or not.
Oh, I didn't know they
So
pollinate.
they do pollinate. So little bastards, got to keep them
Yeah.
around. Ticks, on the other hand, I don't get that. Like, what purpose do they serve?
Maybe the same thing in mosquitoes in a way of like a lot of those things are population control. You know,
Mm,
it's just one. It's like you need wolves because if there's no wolves and you have too many deer, you end up with shitloads of starving deer. So
mm.
there's this homeostasis in life where it's like even the stupidest thing, you're like, oh, I guess we need you out there killing things or causing, plague, or else we would overpopulate and there'd be mass famine. And I mean, in a way, it's terrible because the empathetic side of you is like, you wish that didn't happen. But then there's this like Thanos side of me that's like, yeah, I guess we kind of do need half of everything to die here eventually, or like the world is going to become like that Elysium movie, and
Yeah.
we're just going to be all living in filth and like starving to death anyways. So yeah, it's part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we need the bugs,
Mhm.
in Thailand, they have bug carts. You ever eat at a bug cart?
Oh, I always eat the bug cart, dude.
Do you call them bug carts? That's what I call them.
I call them street carts, and it just depends what it is. Like I've seen the ones with birds still alive in cages; they kill it right there for you. I've seen it with weird, different fish and like, you know, reptiles and amphibians that you've never seen before in that country. And then, of course, all sorts of like deep fried or chocolate dipped like cockroaches, scorpions, tarantulas, and I've eaten every one of them I've seen.
Yeah. Like a lot of people freak out when I tell them about the bug cart, but I mean, the reality is, right? They don't have access to abundance of animal protein, so
Mhm.
they eat bugs. And don't they smell great? Like when they're sautéing the bugs and like garlic and salt and pepper and stuff like that,
Yeah,
they smell great, right?
for sure.
So and they don't taste bad either. Like the scorpion kinda tasted to me like a pork rind or like kinda like the soft shell crab type thing. And I ate a cockroach that was sautéed, and it's disgusting to say that, but when you're there and it's just like kinda like this street food, it's really not a big deal.
Mhm.
Um, except for like you're going to like you're I was holding this scorpion by the stinger, and I'm like going to take a bite, and it's kinda like this dead scorpion's like looking at me, and it's kind of a trip.
Yeah.
But, I think the scorpion was the best tasting out of all of them. Grasshoppers, cockroaches, all of it.
Mhm. I agree. The scorpion's the scariest, but normally it is the best when eaten plain or like not dressed up. But even in places over here like Mexico, I've had a few different places where they do like the cricket or grasshopper barbecued in like tacos. And
Yeah,
if you didn't open it up or see your friend with like little grasshopper teeth or feet between their teeth, if you just like closed it and you were eating in a dark room, you'd be like, oh, this is delicious. It's just like crunchy, Mexicanish tasting barbecue. So
sure.
yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I think the United States might end up eating more bugs than we're currently accustomed to,
Hmm.
and that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, over there, it's like that's just what it is. Like they don't have a ton of protein, so they make these little snacks, and it's like, I hope the bugs are clean. I think they're clean.
Yeah.
People are eating them. There's a lot of them. But that was one of my experiences in Thailand was eating bugs and enjoying it. But there's just a lot, like, there's a lot of things that happen in Thailand that I could talk about, and bugs is probably
Um,
the least of them.
yeah. Yeah. We don't got to stay on bugs for 20 minutes. I will say that they are pure protein. It's
Yeah,
just crunch. It doesn't really have a lot of flavor. It's super cheap. And at least it's not like, I've had a few friends who went and did the Super Cup in Africa thing. And I know in a lot of parts of Africa, they do that thing where they take the double stick net, they just collect swarms of mosquitoes and roll that up, and you eat like a mosquito ball that's charred on the fire. That sounds horrific to me. Any other bug, I'm honestly fine with. Occasionally, I'll just randomly try one because,
you wanna be adventurous.
yeah, 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 absolutely.
Well,
Um,
mosquitoes are gross because they suck blood. Like, I don't wanna eat a mosquito burger. I don't wanna eat anything made with in fact, on Spick and Span Show, they were just talking about mosquito burgers, and they had a picture of it, and it just looked like it was hundreds of thousands of mosquitoes compressed into this gooey mass
that's
that
all
they
it
were
is.
frying.
Yeah, flattened. It's disgusting. It is the most horrific looking thing. So yeah, at least a cricket crispened up. You're like, oh, yeah, it's a cricket, but the little pokers and stuff sticking out every which way, and almost even bits of the wing from a mosquito, which is already the grossest bug. It's brutal. Anyways, we can get past the whole bug and mosquito thing. What I was going to ask you about for Taiwan is like why I was excited about this conversation is, most people I know haven't been to Taiwan. Even if they went to places like Thailand or like Bali, Indonesia, nobody really goes to Taiwan, and I haven't either. So like this is exciting because a lot of the people that I'm gonna have on or have already had on, we talk about places where I have to think about the questions to ask because I already have seen it, like I know it, but I don't know shit about Taiwan. So like when you said nobody really speaks English there, that was surprising. Everywhere else I've been, people are like raised speaking English, and it might sound broken, but they speak it. But like Taiwan almost seems more like the France of Asia, where barely anyone speaks English and they don't give a fuck about trying to speak it to you. They're like, we're not even going to try to meet you halfway.
Yeah.
Um,
Like, the concierge people that ran the apartment building, they would try, "Hello, thank you, goodbye," stuff like that.
yeah.
But everyone else does not care. Like, "Oh, you're okay, you're visiting from somewhere, you can't communicate? Well, tough, learn Mandarin," you know? It's like,
Yep.
um and it's not it's they didn't say that, they don't have that attitude, but that's the reality of living there. It's like everyone speaks Mandarin, that's just how it is.
Yeah.
And I found some businesses that, like I said, were Canadian owned and they'd speak English. But other than that, dude, it's like you really gotta figure it out. You are like I said, you're the minority
Hmm.
in that country if you're, an American dude. So
Okay. So when you are that minority, this I was curious of, is it like they kind of like, they don't really pay attention to you? Are they like surprised when they see you in the area? Or like my example is when we were in mainland Indonesia. This isn't Bali with all the tourists and yoga people. This is like Lake Toba. Anywhere me and little Ben hopped out to check out a waterfall, we'd be taking pictures of the waterfall, and the people would come up and ask to take a picture with us because
yeah.
they're like, "Holy fucking shit, you're a white person! Like, what are you doing here? This isn't a tourist spot." You know what I mean? Is it like that at all, where you're kind of almost celebrity-ish in some way?
No, I wish it was, but
Mm.
you do get attention. It's just negative, like,
Oh.
like staring at you. Or, if you're walking towards someone and they're walking towards you on the street, they cross the street,
Huh.
that kind of thing. And granted, there's different parts of Taiwan. I can't lump all of Taiwan together. I lived in an industrial area called Taichung, and, it's not like a big city like Taipei, where people probably do speak more English and are more, there's a lot of foreigners in Taipei. A lot of people go there to work. And so there's more English speakers there. But where I lived in Taichung, it was like that, where I was different, and people, you know, however I looked to them, raised some flags or some suspicions, and you know, probably it's the first time I ever experienced that, where it's like, man, I'm feeling judged because I look different.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I'm actually, and I never knew what that was like to feel. So
What a
it was
perspective
cool.
change, right? Because that's how a lot
Yeah,
of people feel even in our own country.
exactly.
Where and we are, it's weird to think about that way. I've learned that perspective shift while traveling too. Like when we're here, we don't think about it at all, especially by being like a white male in the US or even in a lot of places you go. You never have a thought of like feeling different. And if you're a good-hearted person, you don't treat other people different. You know what I mean? Like I just try to see people as the person. I know cultures are different, but like the color doesn't matter. But then you get to those places and you're like, oh shit, I'm like this. I feel like an alien. Like maybe I'm not even being treated worse or better, but they're just treating me different than each other. And
They don't
it's
know what to make of you. They're
sweet.
like, "What is
Yeah.
this? Who is this guy? Why is he here?
Yep.
Like, this is not a tourist place, Taichung. Why is he here?" You
Yep.
know.
Do you
But
feel that? Go ahead.
well, it really made me appreciate people that speak other languages as well, because I
Yeah.
remember younger feeling frustrated if I couldn't understand something someone was saying because they had an accent,
Yep.
or English was their second language. And I remember feeling frustrated with those people. And then until I got older and grew up, and I realized, like, wait a second, this person speaks two languages, and maybe they don't speak my language as good as I do, but they speak more languages than I do, so respect,
Hmm.
and it made me more patient too because me having to try and speak broken Mandarin to get to the high speed train or get to wherever, made me realize too, it's like I only speak one language and I'm struggling to speak this language. So maybe when I hear people speaking multiple languages, I should show them a little respect. So
Yes.
it was a growth opportunity there too.
That's well said, dude. I think about that every time I travel where, there are those people, I call them Disney tourists, just like the piece of shit American families that have no regard for anybody. They don't, they're never like, please and thank you. They're just like, waiter, you know what I mean? Just, they're terrible people. And you see them treat people like the workers, right? Like just the waiter or like the person cleaning the garbage tree. You see them treat them like lesser people. But anytime I talk to anybody over there and they're talking to me back in English, or I ask them like, "What's my total?" and I see them do math in English, not their first language, and answer me, regardless of how broken or the accent, I'm like, in a way, this person is smarter than me or has worked
Yes.
harder at something. And
Yeah.
granted, there's all sorts of intelligences, right? Like there are doctors that might not be as socially intelligent as you and I, but they're more educated in something. But something my brain cannot do yet, no matter how hard I fucking try learning Spanish, is like think in Spanish and just
Yeah.
become fluent, right? And here these people are, it doesn't matter what their job is, they're doing it, they're speaking to you in your tongue. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, dude, traveling gives you experiences and opens your mind in ways that school cannot. You learn more about the world, and you learn more about people and as a whole, traveling and learning about other cultures. So it was immensely positive experience. Like it was challenging. Finding food that I like to eat. They have these like basically like fish hot dogs there. That's like a bunch of different fish meats compressed into this little thing. Then they slice it and put it in your ramen. That's gross, but they had some good stuff, dude. Yeah.
Worth a try. Yeah. So I guess other details I'd want to know that I don't are, so you said you're not treated differently, like in a good way. It's not positive attention. It's not anything like that. Something I remember about Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and some of these countries are more like conservative, like Muslim culture countries. But by being the American, and the last time I went to Asia was 2018. It's been a while. Unfortunately, it was before COVID. But by being an American guy, I got more female attention than I would here in the
Mhm.
US. I mean?
Yeah.
It was that same thing of like, if you see an exotic girl here, she stands out from all the other girls around you. Growing up in Buffalo, every person in my high school looks the same, right? The first time you get the foreign exchange student, she's just prettier to you than most of them because of a different way. And I
Yeah.
realized that was what was working for me over there. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm the I'm the white guy. They're not used to the blue eyes or this skin. So, I'm just an average looking guy. Until recently, I've had no money in the bank account, but women over there treated me like better, or it was easier to go on random dates than it's ever been here in the US, where it's more about like your success or your status or whatever.
Sure.
So, did you find in that time you were there, did you date? Was that easy? What was that like?
Yeah, dating was easy there. I definitely dated. Um, I dated some people that were visiting from Canada that were teachers, and then a couple locals. Um, and yeah, I mean, I guess it was easy, like maybe not I don't know. I've never had it's never been super difficult, for like
Yeah.
dating. But there were a couple locals that it's like you could kind of tell that they were looking for a foreigner,
Hmm.
like that. And it's funny because like my buddy Devin, he met his wife over there in Taiwan, and they started dating when I lived over there with him, and he ended up marrying her, and that's like that's like the dream for a lot of those girls is they want to get married and get their
Yeah.
citizenship.
100%.
So it's like I think it could be, easier, like, if you're having trouble on getting dates and, and you are, you're an American, go to Taiwan and you probably won't have any trouble getting a date, But
Well
yeah,
said.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
And I
I don't
didn't
know.
even mean like necessarily like they're easy, but I mean it's like there's that dichotomy, right? That like
There's that
reverse.
appeal.
Yeah, where
Yeah.
you're a little bit more interesting. They already know all the guys around them and what Taiwan guy is like or girl, let's say the vice versa. But then they see you and they're like, there's just something intriguing where they're like, well, I've always wanted to date an American or at least go on a date tonight with them. It doesn't have to be a relationship thing. And I used to very much enjoy that part of traveling so much just because it was perspective changing. It was confidence boosting for sure. But yeah, it was unique. I never wanted to be treated like a celebrity or anything weird like that. But it was just here, you're one in a million. It's hard to stand out. There, you're like the catch. And now I know kind of more what it's like, I guess, to be a woman because women have you have their pick of the litter, right? Like if you're a pretty girl, you can
Yeah.
just any day go out and get a date that night. And for me, it felt like that over there. And it's always funny to hear the other people who get those experiences where they're like, oh yeah, like Tinder was off the charts. Every person was a match.
Well, so I exited the dating pool after Tinder or before Tinder was invented. So I
Mhm.
never knew what it's like using Tinder. And dude, I wasn't in Taiwan like some Casanova just like, dating girls all the time,
Yeah, yeah,
you know. Um and the local Taiwanese girls that I dated they spoke English. So I think they dated other foreigners too. Um, but I think it could be easier, Like I think it is. Like I think that like you said, you have that kind of like that foreign appeal. I think a lot of it, dude, and I don't mean this to sound any type of negative way, but I think, a lot of them are kind of looking for
the green
citizenship.
card. Yep, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know.
Hmm.
Um, so you kind of got to be upfront, like I'm here for a year. There's not going to be anything serious. Like
Yeah.
I'm going to have to leave soon and your dreams may not come true.
Yeah. No, I get it. I'll say, it's not like when you're going over there for paintball, you don't have time to just gallivant and date all day, every day. But when it happens naturally, like when you're at the coffee shop and they just seem to be very eye contact or flirty or whatever, I used to always be the one where it's like, well, I'm gonna, confidently pursue this thing, and it would work like 99% of the time, and it would work by just like being respectful and like polite and sweet. Like there's that romance still, where here it might not work. Like you talk to somebody that doesn't know you, especially in person out and about, it can be almost a little weird sometimes because they're like, all right, unless you're about to ask something, what do you want from me or whatever, and you're just trying to like, I don't know, small talk and conversation and see if there's a chemistry, right? But yeah, I've never been to Taiwan, but I remember in a Amsterdam event, I landed in Berlin first, and the first girls I met in a Berlin club were Taiwan girls. Weirdly enough, me and my friend met a group of Taiwan girls, and something I noticed about them, aside from being like the shy, sweet, giggly or whatever, is they all had fake contacts. Was that a thing
Yes.
back then for you?
Yeah. Yeah,
Every one of them.
they get rid of the brown eyes. They want the blue or the green or whatever.
Yes, and almost digital looking, like the little
Yep.
squares or like snowflakes, but they all had like these just like super sharp, unique eyes. And I'd look at them and be like, "Your eyes are fucking beautiful. What is going on here?" And I'd like getting close, and they'd be like, "Oh, they're lenses." And I'm like, I was gonna say, I don't know what you are that you are, but I thought they were like some type of like, is this what they're born with over here?
Their eyes are basically black, but they put on these contacts, you're like, "Oh,
Mhm.
look at that." In Taiwan, maybe in Thailand too, uh, not only do they put colored, contacts in, but they also some of them use skin products that lighten their skin. And it's
Hmm.
so funny because here, in Western society, like we're trying to make our skin darker, and like being tan is like appealing. Whereas like over in Taiwan, if you're tan, it means that you work outside and you're
Yeah,
poor.
yeah.
So they wanna buy and big name companies, skincare companies make products to cater to these people, like Oil
Hmm.
of Olay. It's like a famous skincare brand. They make skin lightening lotions over there. So it's kind of interesting, like the different I guess fashion trends or like what's popular,
True.
you know.
Based on
Hey,
culture,
hey
for
Joe,
us. Yeah.
would it be possible for me to go pee?
It's funny you say that because I was about to want to go do that too. So let's take a 30-second break and we'll be right
Okay.
back.
All right, cool.
Sweet. Guys, I am tech illiterate. I don't know how to pause this thing and I don't want to accidentally end
So
it.
that's the top of the
So
screen.
I am going to
Right
go
there.
pee and there's going to be a
Right there.
30-second break.
Pause. Pause.
Wait, is there a
Pause.
pause?
Yeah, there's a pause button up there.
I
You can
don't see
pause
the
recording.
pause.
Or you can just keep recording and cut this out, whatever.
We're gonna, oh,
So yeah, man, pretty interesting that people from different cultures think that their opinion, their perspective on beauty is different, based on
mhm.
different things in their culture. So
Yep.
that's another pretty cool thing about Taiwan.
Yeah. I like that here we can want to be tan because it's like, oh, they have time to be outside in the sun. You know what I mean? Like they're on the beach, they're tan, it's beautiful, right? Or just the golden glow looks healthy. And over there they want that porcelain white
Yeah,
in Taiwan and China and a few of those places. And it's because like, oh, if they're out in the sun, they're
you're a
labor.
laborer.
So
Yeah,
hopefully you're just inside pampered all day in your AC. And yeah, it's
yeah,
just very unique, like neither is right or wrong, I guess. I'd prefer to be in the sun for the vitamin D and being out in nature, but I don't know. It all looks pretty. You can appreciate every type of beauty in life.
yeah, yeah. It's like someone is beautiful when they carry themselves like a beautiful person. So as long as you do that, you're attractive.
That's true. That
Yeah,
that's a good segue right there to uh, a little bit of a deeper thing that I like to ask these questions about when people travel is before you had traveled this international place. You said you were even reluctant to go there.
yeah.
I mean, I don't really know you beyond the you that I've had conversations with only just recent years in paintball. So, were you, what? I know you're very intelligent, but what type of person were you before that? Like, as far as more introverted, extroverted, like social type scale?
How do you know I'm very intelligent, Joe? Is that an assumption?
Um, No, because when I hear you speak, you can tell if people are dummies. You know what I mean? Like there's people where it's like they say five things, and you're like, all right, this person is not very intelligent or
Shut up.
educated.
Stop nagging. Yeah.
But also, you are a good friend to my good friend, Master Crystal Soya. And
Mhm.
I was just chatting with him the other day because I'd like to have him on the show. And I told him the story about how we got to here and that I was having you on soon because you just had me on Go Sports, which was sweet. And he was like, "Oh, you're gonna love talking to Zyzek," and I'm like, "Yeah, I already like talking to Zyzek." He's like, "That dude is one of the most intelligent guys I know, so he will have a lot of like that actual perspective that you're looking for, not just the first we went here, we went in the beach, then you know what I mean, like." And this has been that type of conversation so far. So yeah,
I just spoke with Chris too right before I hopped on the podcast, and, dude, that guy will have some stories that you may need to get a different rating for on your. I don't know if you can just release that into the public, his stories, 'cause he's gonna have some gnarly ones.
I know. I told him I want them all. I want those stories. So
Dude, talk about a guy that's lived a freaking rock star life from paintball. That's
for
the guy right
sure,
there. Yeah. But,
100%.
so before, what was I like before I traveled?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably just like every other guy in his early to mid 20s, um, thinking, that I know everything and that I'm God's gift to the world and to women.
Mm,
Um, and so how to learn, like, that's what you just do. That's what you do in your 20s. Like you you learn that you're not as grown up as you thought you are, and you learn that, the older you get, the dumber you were. So yeah, I would say that, before that, before my travels, I was just like a kinda like this party kid that
mhm.
wanted to have a good time all the time
Yep.
and, didn't know much about the world.
Okay. So we had a little bit of a different path then because, and I'll say I think a lot of it was just because I was like way overweight till a year or two after college, but I was like unconfident and kind of a toxic piece of shit coming out of Buffalo, New York
Hmm,
into like my early 20s, probably until about 22, maybe 23. So I was not like a I know everything king shit. I guess the different thing that would happen there is you were at like the peak of paintball. You're a world champ with Ironman. Like you would have reason to be like maybe cockier than you should or think you know it all because you've achieved a lot in your realm. But for me, I was a nothing and didn't really value myself a ton. And it wasn't
mm,
till I like had a certain psychedelic experience that made me like start respecting myself a lot more. And I like, got very serious about working out and eating right, lost all the weight, got in great shape, listened to more podcasts and books rather than just rap music. And then I kind of became the me that everyone knows now. Um, but
okay,
still,
wait. What psychedelic experience? Tell me about that, like, that spurred all this. What did you
yeah, for
take? What
sure.
was it?
So I, yeah, I'll be very open on this podcast, and that's why I'm going to get people's R-rated stories because those other podcasts got to keep it PG, but for here, I want the stories, and um, I remember I had taken a kind of more heroic dose of psilocybin mushrooms.
Where? Where were
Um,
you?
I was at my college campus, University of
Huh?
Buffalo in New York. And, I'd tried it before, but in like the wrong way, like coming up in college or whatever. I tried doing it like while at a frat party, like in a musty basement, playing pong, already drunk, things that wasn't respecting the medicine and it didn't give
Sure.
me what I needed out of it. Instead, it just gave me like maybe the visuals or whatever.
Yeah.
But, I had this one, we we had this group that lived in a apartment number 1205. So it was like the 1205 group. They were all paintballers too. A lot of them on my college team. And we started like trying to like do these experiences together the right way, just going on like long nature walks, like whole day things, and being more respectful of it. And then like having conversations about like what we were thinking or like different um, eureka moments that we were
Yeah.
realizing stuff about life that was different than what we thought. But there was this one particular one. It was on Christmas Day after I got back I had moved after I graduated college, 2012, to Florida, was there for like about a year, tried out for damage, didn't make the cut, moved back, went on this journey with my friends where we just walked around the bike path around the campus, tripping, but it's not like you're like fucked up, like the visuals are crazy, but I want people to understand it's not like crackheads or like people that are even really drunk and like belligerent. No, it's more like you're tripping hard in a way of like your brain is opening up and making more neural connections than it ever has. And you're like, oh my God, the thing holding me back is me. Like I have that toxic habit, and that's the reason that I'm 80 pounds overweight, blah, 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 all those things. And so it really just it pulled the veil off. It made me stop hiding from myself, and it made me like it just really it brought all those things that you kind of like bury or ignore about you or about life to the surface where you can't ignore them anymore. Like they're right there in the frontal cortex of your brain, and you're like, it's glaring me in the face. And now, if I don't do something about it, then I'm an even bigger piece of shit because before I was ignorant, but now I know. Like now I've
Yeah.
been to the therapy and I get it. So I got to fucking do this shit. And then I, just became like as positive as I could in every way. That's the
It changed
story.
your life.
Yeah.
It impacted you. You were going one direction and you hit this thing
Yep.
and your life changed course afterwards.
For sure. For sure. Like literally the wrong direction at first, all the way. Just kind of paintball was my only thing I cared about. Still is my favorite thing, but it was the only thing that gave me anything to keep me out of like jail or violent situations. Or, there was a lot of that in that early part of life where a lot of my friends around me or the people I associate with either ended up dead from overdose or dead from DWI or jail or ruined life from 3 DWIs. And now they're just walking to some landscaping job every day in their 30s. All of that was all around me. And the only thing keeping me off most of that was paintball. But this experience was like, all right, you're related to the five nearest people, and it seems like your acquaintance group are all pieces of shit. And now that I think about it, you're kind of a piece of shit too. And it's only a matter of time before you go to jail or you whatever. So you need to like figure your shit out. And then I did that.
Dude, I had an experience, my first experience ever on psilocybin, um, was like this unlocking moment for me as well. It wasn't personal. It was
Mhm.
about the world and people and the connectedness of everything
Yes.
and the undeniable for me, the undeniable truth that there is a creator. I couldn't deny, like, it was just in my face.
Yep.
Um, so first time I ever went to Amsterdam, I think it was like 2004 or 5, and, uh, that was actually so that first trip in Amsterdam was the first time I ever got high on marijuana. I was, hanging out with Travis Day, who played for Aftershock and played for a couple of
Rage.
Rage, yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't know his name, you do.
I
So,
do. He was a
I was
gangster.
hanging out with Travis Day, he likes to smoke the pot, and, he's like, "You ever been high before?" And I was like, "No." So, I was smoking with him in his hotel room, and he kept asking me, "You feel it? You feel it? You feel it?" I was like, "No, I don't think so." But I'd never been stoned, so I didn't know when I was there yet
Yeah.
until I was really, really stoned. And he was flipping through channels, and he never picked one. He just kept flipping, and it's like, man, he's gone around the horn a couple times now.
Hmm.
And so, like, after a few minutes of Travis flipping through channels, I just started busting up. It's like, because he's not picking anything, and I just thought that it was hilarious that he was flipping through channels, again, first time I was high. Um, so that was my first experience with marijuana, was in Amsterdam with Travis Day, first time I ever got stoned. And that kinda, like, made me like, "Well, maybe drugs aren't so bad," I don't like, maybe this isn't what I think it is. Like, marijuana always had this really bad stigmatism growing up, and it was illegal in the States back then. Um,
Hmm.
so so that experience kinda opened my eyes and my mind to trying different things. Um, I am opposed to hard drugs. Like, I don't think there's any reason to try heroin. I don't think there's any reason to try meth,
Crack. Yeah.
yeah, like, stay away I stay away from that stuff, but
Life ruiners.
yeah, life ruiners, things that you like, why would you do a drug where the very first time you do it, you are addicted to it? That's
Yep.
heroin. Like, if you try it, you're done.
Yep.
You're gonna get addicted, so, not
100%.
about that. Anyway, that experience opened my eyes to trying different things. So, um later, I went back to Amsterdam. Maybe when I went, it was like 2002 or 2003, and then I went back with the Ironman is 2005. Yeah. So when I went back with the Ironman, uh, I decided to try something else, and there was a group of us, and it was like, let's try mushrooms. I had never done it before, and it was I had the when in Rome type mentality,
For sure.
like let's try it. So we go to a coffee shop And I'm like, what kind of mushrooms are for beginners? Like, I've never done this before. I don't want to freak out, right? You don't want to have a bad trip, so they say. So he's like, "Oh, here you go. There's these things called sorcerer's stones." And,
Sorcerer's Stone.
yeah, they make you
Found it.
feel like happy and elated, and, you feel it in your body a little. I'm like, "Okay." Like, am I gonna see crazy stuff? Nah, no, you won't see anything on these. Okay, great. So we got them. A bunch of us ate them. The recommended dosage from the guy, like, didn't take a hero dose or anything, just took what was recommended. And so we're kinda just roaming the streets of Amsterdam. We're, like, in the coffee shop, red light district. It's beautiful there. There's cobblestone streets, there's bridges going over the canal. It's just
Mhm.
beautiful place,
It's
right?
stunning.
Stunning. And, the cobblestones are like different shades of purple and red, right? Like, you're
Yep.
familiar. You've been there. So, we're walking around, you know, downtown Amsterdam, and the moment I realized that I was starting to feel the effects of the psilocybin was I was wearing a hooded sweatshirt that was a zip up. And I remember this thought process. I was feeling like, I can feel this sweatshirt on my skin, but I can't feel the shirt underneath it. I can't feel this thing. And then I thought, why am I even thinking that? Like, why is this thought process going through my head? And then I'm like, oh, I'm experiencing the thing I'm supposed to.
Mhm.
Like, starting to feel this thing, like starting to feel this stuff happening. So I start to recognize that my mind is changing a little, and I'm starting to
Mhm.
think weird things. I'm starting to feel weird things. And as I'm processing this, I see this guy. He's late for an appointment or something. And he's got a stack of papers. Like, there's no, like, they're not wrapped with paper. They're not tied with a bow. There's like this stack of, like, loose papers. Like, and he's carrying them like, oh, here's my papers. Running. And the cobblestone's a little bit wet. It's dewy. It's dewy out there. And it hit. Like, it hit, and right when it hit, this man slipped on the cobblestone, and all the papers that he had, like the stacks of paper, just flew up in the air like confetti, and they were all different colors. Like, I was like, "Whoa!" And people that don't know what's happening, they're like, "What? How come this guy's so excited about this guy falling on the cobblestone with the papers everywhere?"
Yeah.
So all the colors shot up in the air, and then I looked down, and all the cobblestones are the color that they're supposed to be, but they're brighter, and they're like backlit, like they're like glowing.
Yep.
And I'm like, "Oh, this is." I started to get nervous, right? Because he said I wouldn't see anything. I would just feel happy and all this stuff, and I saw paper turn into like confetti kaleidoscope, and now the street cobblestones are changing colors. So it's like I'm seeing stuff. So, but I'm having a great time. Like, I'm laughing uncontrollably. Like, I'm just having a great time. And I start to see more things. And I see the buildings start to come alive. The windows become eyes and eyelashes. The doors become mouths, and the buildings are super close together, but they're
Yeah.
different. They have different facades, so you know which building is different building, because they're, even though they're stuck like
Yep.
this one looks different than this one.
Like stacked
And
townhomes, endless rows of
yeah,
them.
yeah. And so these buildings come alive, and they're dancing like this, like up and down, like they're moving up and down like this. The different color buildings are moving up and down while the eyelashes are blinking and the mouths are singing, and there's like this background song. It's kind of like circus music. It's like dun, 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 and then the buildings are
Man.
so happy. And I'm like, this is gnarly, because I had my full reasoning, and I knew, and I remember telling one of my teammates, I know for a fact that this is not occurring in real life. This is
Mhm.
not, you can't see this. I'm the only one that can see this, but I'm telling you right now, I 100% see it. It is happening, but I know it's not. So it was like a huge, this like huge, like, mind trip for me, because in that moment, I recognized that how powerful the mind is.
Mhm.
And I thought, if my brain is capable of projecting these things that aren't happening, what else am I missing?
Yeah.
How could I experience this thing that's not happening, but see it and still know it's not happening? Like, how could I have my I could still I'm still aware, I'm not
Yeah.
like under this thing where it's like, "Oh, I'm hallucinating, I'm seeing this." Yes, I'm hallucinating, but I know I'm doing it. So it's
Yep.
like this weird thing, and that's what made me think about the complexities of the human brain and how it could not have possibly evolved into existence through countless cosmic accidents. Is there must be a divine intelligent creator, and there's things about him and his realm that we don't understand, and through this compound that he has also created, I'm able to see a glimpse of it. And so that changed my life. It changed my life, um, experiencing what the human brain is capable of, and it was such a beautiful and powerful thing that it's still to this day, I look at it as the reason that I believe in God. And I grew up Christian. I grew up in a Christian household, going to church
Hmm.
because that's how I was raised. I knew nothing else. And when I found out that there were other religions, I stopped going to church and I stopped believing because I just figured all these people believe what they believe because that's how they were raised.
Their parents were that. Yeah, exactly.
That's how their parents were. So then, I had this experience where that I couldn't deny, that made me, it just made me convicted in that it must be true. Not because I was raised that way, because I felt it.
Hmm.
And it put me on exploration of, okay, if I believe in intelligent design and I believe that there is a creator, well, would that creator want his existence to know about him? And if he did, what method would he use to reveal himself? So, so it put me on this kind of like spiritual journey that I'm still going through today, but definitely like opened my eyes. And so I started, I had this like moment in my brain, but I also started to see more things. We were driving back to the hotel, and I was in the back seat, and Billy Wing was in the passenger seat, which was on the left there. Yeah.
Hmm.
And so he was sober. He doesn't mess around with anything like that. But he was looking back in the back seat talking to me. And it was during a time of the year where all the trees were bloom, everything was like really green and beautiful.
Hmm.
And we're driving through this road that has very large trees on both sides, and the green from the trees is reflecting on everything. Like this emerald glow. Everywhere that I look is glowing emerald, and it's coming from the trees. So Billy Wing looks back at me, and I'm like, "Billy, your face is green." And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, get over it. You're on drugs, type thing. I'm like, "No, dude, it's like beautiful. Like, your face is green. It's glowing emerald from the trees." And he's like, "What are you talking about?" And right when he said that, his face melted all the way down. Like his face melted and then sucked back up, like
Oh my
melted and
goodness.
then went elastic back up and like bounced a little bit before it went back into its form. And I was like, "Your face just melted." And he's like, "We got to get you back to the hotel." So, so
Shower, food. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So, so we get back to the hotel, and at the bottom floor of the hotel, there's this bar, and no one's in there. Everyone goes up to their room. And the people that accompanied me on this spiritual adventure, they went up to their rooms, so I didn't have
Mhm.
anyone to talk about my visuals anymore.
Oh man.
So I'm in this, downstairs lobby bar, and I decide to look at a painting on the wall, and it was like kind of like this Van Gogh type painting with like the little dots. It's kind of like that, and all the dots just started swirling around like a kaleidoscope, like a kaleidoscope, but not symmetrical. It was
Mm,
still the painting, but the brush strokes were moving.
yeah.
in a very calming, beautiful way. And I don't know how long I stood there this close, the painting, just staring at it like this.
Hmm.
And then I heard a voice, "Hey, are you okay?" And I look and the bartender's right there. And I don't know how long he's been watching me. And I'm just like staring at this painting and I'm like, "This is a beautiful painting." And he goes, "It is. It is." I'm like, "I gotta go." So, so I felt super embarrassed that I definitely got caught like tripping out, staring at this painting. So I head to the elevator and I push the button and it feels like I'm just waiting and waiting and waiting. So I decide to sit on this bench next to the elevator and there's an ashtray. And in the ashtray, there's ash. And the ash starts doing kaleidoscope things, symmetrical kaleidoscope things, where it's like collecting and they'll spread out like this and then collecting and then spread out. And the ash looked beautiful in this ashtray.
Hmm.
And like, I know it's not beautiful. I know it's just ash and it probably stinks. So finally, I get into the elevator. I don't remember much about the elevator ride. I remember it took a long time. I was in there for a while, or what it felt like a while. And I got to my floor, and at the end of the corridor in these hallways, there's like these little balconies that are shared balconies. And there's like this metal grid where you can go step out on the grid and you're like enclosed in this cage and kind of look down at the city. And so I'm standing in this metal cage and I put my face on the grid and I felt my face go through it and I could just like see the city without the grid. And that was kind of a gnarly experience. And then I went into the stairwell and sat there for several hours just thinking about life. And I had it all figured out. Like I had God figured out and his reasoning behind creating everything and all this stuff. And I was confident that I knew it. It's like, yes, this is definitely the way to live your life. And and then when I like started to sober up, I lost it all. I lost all like
Hmm.
the things that I knew.
Yep.
And now the only way that I can describe them or that experience is this feeling of, like I said, this conviction that I know that there's a God.
Yep.
But during the experience, I if I had a pen and paper, I believe that I could explain it in a way that everyone would believe it.
I 100% believe you. Yeah, I always feel like you have to journal it right there at the end in the come down, or else you do lose it. Sometimes it feels like you can keep it for a little while. Uh, there'll be like this, I don't know, 2, 3 day to a week onset period of like the lessons are still sunk in. And it's not even just learning, it's like remembering what you already knew. And it's like a unlearning of society's conditioning. It feels more like that to me. But then you start to, what is the word? You start to decompress and you get back into the sluggishness of like working a job and kind of like life beating you down and people not being as kind as they were in those moments. And you like switch back to that old default reality. And it's so hard to fight that, like falling back to the default mindset and losing that like unconditional love and like that true understanding of the world. And like it almost feels like enlightenment, because like you have so much more empathy and like just like trust in like who you are, like what the world is like. Yeah, it's enlightening to me, but it's so hard to keep it for any length at all, really.
I kind of look at it as like a dream. You can recall your dream right when you wake up. But if you don't talk about it right away or write it down, when you go and try and explain that dream to someone, you're gonna come like, wait, what happened here? Like, you're not gonna remember it. Like, you start to lose the dream after a couple days or a couple hours. So the experience with it kind of felt like that with psilocybin, where I had this like immense clarity and I lost it. You know.
Hmm.
So if I ever do experience or experiment with psilocybin again, I will have something to take notes with for sure. I don't know that I will. Um, I just don't feel the need for it. but I'm open to the experience, you know? I'm open to it.
You're invited to do it to me anytime me and you end up in some other country. I'd be happy to go on a journey with you. You know, we can
Yeah,
be each other's shamans or figure out life together because it's new every time you get new friends to try it with. And yeah, I just think that'd be awesome. And
yeah,
also, I felt like okay, the way to describe it like a dream is very true, but in an opposite way the first few times I did it felt more like a dream. After that, I kept feeling like the default life is the dream because it's kind of like when you're having those normal dreams where you're not always fully in control. Like it's a little bit sloppy. Sometimes there's things where you're like, that was a glitch in the matrix. And when you're on it, I, I've never felt more alive once I learned how to control it and it didn't feel like dreaming anymore. Instead, it felt like I was powerful. Almost, I don't mean like a god, but I could literally do whatever I pleased. I could manifest a situation to happen the way I was picturing it in real time. I could become any stranger around me's best friend in the next few minutes. You know what I mean? Like it was much more smooth and like flow state constantly. And then when you came off of it, it's kind of like you went back to sleep, you know, like you were more unconscious, just going through your day to day routine without like intention or consciousness. And I think we all do that anyway, especially if you're working a job you don't really love. Like paintball keeps you hyper aware. If you're not in that moment, you're dead, right? But if you're a cashier or you're whatever else, you know what I mean? Like you're kind of just going through your day in autopilot. And when
yeah.
you're one of those psychedelic journeys, you are not in autopilot. Like you're like, whoa, I'm in the driver's seat and I'm gonna make this day the best it can be right now if you're at that level of experience.
Dude, I remember telling one of my teammates that I was experiencing this with, I said, "I wanna feel like this all the time. I wanna
Hmm.
see this all the time. I wanna think this way all the time, like, this is how I want life to be." And he's like, "Buddy, that's how you become a drug addict."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It
You
sounds
know?
like it, doesn't
I was
it?
like, yeah, and I was like, "Oh, you're right, like, I can't be this way all the way." Like, I had to remind myself, like, this is an experience, you know, that I'm having, and you can't chase the dragon. You can't like,
Yeah,
you can't chase after this feeling all the time because
yeah,
it's meant to be temporary.
yeah.
So,
Well, the feeling, more the experience and the visuals and all of that is meant to be temporary, but I've always learned from like people from workshops doing it and like experiences that I like went and paid to like learn how to do it correctly is you do want to try to take something back from it. You know, it's almost
yeah,
like if you go through the slipstream or the black hole, try to bring something back from the other side and like show proof of like, look at there's more out there. And so that's
yeah,
where the journaling thing is important because you don't want to stay doing that all the time. Eventually it'll burn out receptors or you'll be too far gone. You know, you'll end up one of those people that lives in a van because you no longer care about reality or contributing or being productive because you're more worried about that different dimension you've seen, right? Which
yeah.
I guess that's what monks are looking for in meditation. So maybe that's not a bad thing either. But the point is, if you can not be doing it all the time, but bring back the important stuff you've learned, like how to connect with people better, or like how to leave a better imprint on this world and make your little corner of reality better. That is so imperative. And it's something that everybody should try to go do, you know, or experience it and come back with those things.
I think if someone is going through anxiety or depression, you know, anxiety, they say, is where you're worrying too much about the future. Depression means you're worrying too much about the past.
Hmm.
And I believe that if someone is afflicted with these things, psilocybin can impact them and change their perspective on life, and therefore have them worrying less about the future and worrying less about what's happened in the past, and being able to truly live in the moment. So it's the ancients used it as medicine,
Hmm.
and I believe that. Well, I don't believe, I know that society's just coming around to psilocybin. It is starting to become more mainstream. People are starting to accept it more as medicine. But I believe it can fix a lot of these things, these modern day things that weren't problems in the past, like anxiety and depression. I believe it can fix those things because those things happen in between your ears, you know?
I agree. I 100% agree. Um, I'm someone who's microdosed plenty to help myself out and like keep kind of more like razor sharp or even keel or whatever. Including microdosing on THC. Like I'm not a weed smoker. I haven't been for forever, since like 2016. But that's why I believe in this company, because a microdose of THC will even put you in that like different flow state, like that you're a little bit more open, you're thinking a little bit more critically,
Mm.
you're considering things with more mindfulness. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that. And also I think everybody should, not everybody, I'm not saying kids should do this. I think you have to develop your brain to a point where you're fully
Definitely.
mature and all that yet. This is not by any means saying any listener that is below age or mentally unstable, has those like paranoid schizophrenia things there. This is not for everyone, but if
Yeah,
you are mentally stable, if you have strong resolve and you are of age, I think everyone should try a deep dive. Like, I really feel like that is what saved my life. And I have countless friends around me that I know had the same thing that turned into the higher versions of themselves from that aspect. So yeah, I think that's huge. And I love that story you just told. I loved your Amsterdam story so much, because something I've always felt is we all have different trips that are specific to ourselves, but there's a lot of trips that I feel like you will all almost have the same one, because it. Because when you're with friends, you're like, I know the way we're describing it, we're seeing the same thing. And man, I can picture a lot of the stuff you did because I've had that Amsterdam trip twice. I loved it so much the first time. I did it the next year I came, and I'd love to tell you that story. It won't be nearly as long, but you know, uh, my first time going to Amsterdam was, forget the team at the time. It was either Kiev United or Five Star, one of those like Euro semi-pro pro area teams at the time. And I had already done you know this stuff before, so for me it wasn't a first time. And so I went to the shop. They sell legally. Like Amsterdam is so cool how open and like advanced that culture is. People are just very progressive, not in the weird ways, not in like the like overly liberal progressive. People are just, they understand there's more than what we think, and they're not
yeah.
as held back by like their pharmaceutical bullshit. You know what I mean? So I went right to a place and I got psilocybin mushroom. What are they called? The under the ground version.
That's what the sorcerer's stones were. They look like clumps of dirt. They didn't look like a
Yes,
mushroom.
yes, they're. What is the name of that? Like you can get it and put it on food. There's a name for
Truffle.
something. Truffles, exactly. And I was like, hey, I want something that complements this area. Hit me with a deep dive. And I got several of these, what looked like snooze cans, like circular tin cans. Each one had 4 grams of that in it. And I've never been a dip your toes in it type of guy. So I just ate all of them. And I already knew that this Amsterdam is like an art capital of like Europe and the world. And you have the Van Gogh and the Banksy museum, like half-mile walking distance from like those main streets and like the canal streets, right? So I ate them with some friends. Like I'm there with my buddy Brandon, who was like an NXL pro at the time that moved across the country with me from Buffalo to California. We eat them and we go in to the Van Gogh Museum the hour it opens, right? And Van Gogh's museum is remarkable. It's this gorgeous structure, and it's 4 or 5 floors. And you start at the top and work your way down. And each floor is about a decade of his life, and it's a different time period. So the
Yeah.
beginning is like he's doing that like single dot brushwork to make landscapes. You see a lot of farmers in front of beautiful fields in Netherlands, and you see like the windmills, right? And it's beautiful. And there's going to be a few little parts of the story like there I really learned to appreciate art, because I could tell he had certain brush strokes behind like a what almost looked more like at a distance a stick figure farmer's brush, like his broom sweeping in front of his house. And when you looked at that and you were tripping, the broom was moving. So the strokes literally gave it movement the way you were supposed to see it. And I'm like, oh my God, this is, I can see the wind currents he drew. I can see the way he wanted the wheat to like wave. Like it's so genius. It's so brilliant, the art strokes that that Van Gogh guy put into it, right? And then I started going down, and through the years, he started to lose his mind. And honestly, I can't remember. I don't know why he's my favorite artist now. If it was like a degenerative brain disease, or if it was he was also delving in certain psychedelics too much. It was one of those two. But as you went down another level, painting got more weird. It got more abstract. It got more meshy. It started getting into that stuff that we all know Van Gogh as, with the melty stuff, like clocks melting and stuff that's already dripping, and complemented with these mushroom truffles. Oh, did I lose you? Lost your camera.
Yeah, can you still hear me?
I still hear you. Oh, there you are.
Yeah, my Sony camera overheated, so
Gotcha.
I'm on
Okay.
here now. Sorry about that.
That's okay. My $100 plug-in mic is probably going to kill this computer soon because it's a fucking Mac and I can't charge it and have the mic in. So eventually, here I'm going to pause this and I'm going to unplug this to put my charger back in. The sound quality is going to get worse for this podcast, but not horrible, just not beautiful like this.
Yeah, people
So
listening won't even know my camera stopped working, right?
they shouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, on Spotify, not at all until I pointed that out. But anyways, so now I'm already, you know what the visuals are like. Stuff is already drippy and oozy, but I'm looking at art that's like 10 feet wide on these walls from the artist that does that best in the world, in
Yeah.
all of time. So everything is mesmerizing. And I'm doing that thing where I'd be either sitting on a bench or standing in front of it like this. And that was when I realized those people, like, you'd always hear people talk in front of art, like, oh, I like the way they, and I'm like, I don't know, I can't really be too descriptive about art. Like, I could say it's beautiful or I like this concept of it, but I couldn't be like, oh, I see what the artist is doing for her. He's pointing out. And in this moment, well, this many hours, I could. And sometimes, like, art enthusiasts would stop next to me and maybe they were tripping too, maybe they weren't, but we would have those conversations for a while about each piece I was in front of, right?
Hmm.
And on top of this, the really cool part about this is Amsterdam is a very international city. So while I'm in there, I'm like hyper aware, like my hearing is tuned in where if I put the
Yes.
awareness on a certain conversation, two rooms over, I can hear those two people quietly
Yes.
chatting
I
over the
remember
banter of
hearing
everything
that.
else. You
Yeah.
remember this?
Yeah, I
But
had that too. I forgot to describe it.
but on top of that, everyone's speaking every different language. So I felt for a little while when I was just stuck staring at certain artworks, like I was in that city of Babel, like the old story,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
all around me was literally I didn't hear any English other than me and my friends, because you wouldn't really hear like the British people in there or whatever. They don't really go in there. They're partying and shit for the most part. It's the reality of
Yeah.
it. But you would hear tons of Middle Eastern, like Arabic. You'd hear all of the like Netherlands, German, Norway, the Slavic languages. And then there were a lot of Asian tourists there with like cameras. So I was hearing it all, and it was just this blah, 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 until you picked one to tune into while you're looking at this art, and it was such a unreal experience, like mind blowing to be having such a audio trip and a visual trip together, right?
Yeah.
So I'm eventually sitting on the bottom floor in front of one of his biggest pieces, um, Starry Night. And I'm just there for I don't know how long. It could have been the last 20 minutes, it could have been the last 3 hours. But I'm just like losing myself in it. And eventually a janitor comes over and starts chatting with me. And we get up and we start looking at the last few things and kind of like pointing out, and we're having this really good conversation. And then eventually he opens a door and it's like the last of sunlight coming in. And I'm like, what's this? And he's like, oh, this is the exit. The place is closed. I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, we closed about a half hour ago. I was like, I am so sorry. Were you waiting for me to close this floor? Whatever. He's like, it's not a big deal. This happens to people all the time. But yeah, I'm sorry, we're closed. You do have to leave. You can't circle back or anything like that. That's why I kind of pointed out this and that from those last 4 or 5 paintings. You got stuck and you've been sitting there for a decent while, but museum's closed, buddy. I was like, well, thanks so much for being kind, like and not booting me earlier or whatever. I appreciate that. Go outside, and outside it's like sunset, like the golden hour.
Mm,
And this is like, I thought that was going to be the best part of my trip. It was amazing. I've been back in there since, but outside was remarkable because when you step out of that museum, you're at this central park, and the end of the park is that big castle that was once a train station, or is now a train station. Maybe it used to be a castle, but it's now a train station. And underneath it is the sign that says, I am Amsterdam. Do you know the sign?
mm-mm.
It's an I in red, a white am, and then Sterdam in red.
Hmm.
And so it says I Amsterdam. And
Yeah.
it's I like to get the pictures with those signs in every like city or country I go to abroad. But I step outside and the grass is coursing with energy. And I see
Hmm.
my friends sitting there in the grass. They were all waiting for me. They didn't rush me along. And I go over and I join them, and it's them and these two guys, a guy and a girl that we grabbed from our hotel, and we're like, we're about to do this tonight. If you want to join us, come join us. And so we tagged along new friends that became friends with us throughout this journey. We sat there in the grass, and this is when I kind of realized that like reality was different than what I thought it was, and I already learned a lot from these things, but I could see energy coursing from them down into the grass they were sitting in and then directly to me, like in direct running lines, right? Like
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
fingertips were grabbing it out of the grass, but I could follow any one of the million streams and see it going into everything around me, but especially them and people walking by, right? And in that moment, I realized that reality gives you this false idea of like divide. Like you see yourself and the other people as separate. I'm me, they're the other. But when you see this, you're like, oh, we're more connected than I thought. And this
Mm,
isn't just some hippie bullshit, because if you know anything about science, you also know that in a half hour sitting next to me, a lot of atoms which are in the cells are changing out of you. Like you make a new you, just the skin cells every half hours, right? And you're gaining some of that from other people. Like, you'll hear like Bill Nye and those guys talk about how there's somewhere in you 1 billionth of an atom or a cell that was once that same cell. It's never created or destroyed. The atoms, the energy from a dinosaur a million years ago. So I'm knowing this in my head and I'm thinking about that as I'm seeing it, and I'm like, my friend across from me right now is literally an extension of me.
yeah.
They are literally just me born and raised in different part and giving reality or the universe a different perspective, just different eyes to see and experience it all from. Because if it was only one of us, it's too much for us to see and do. But I then felt so much more love for them and for all strangers, for everyone. People I didn't even know. Like it extended beyond my friends and family group or my town or my city or my country to everyone, because I realized like these people are all just part of me and I am part of them. And now I need to even be more caring and understanding and even less toxic, because if I'm going to be a part of them, I want them to feel me as a good part of them, you know?
Mm,
And I want to treat them as I would treat myself. It'd be respectfully. So now, even if someone's like doing me wrong, like occasionally you get that one person in your life, the acquaintance or the bad teammate that just treats you like dog shit. But I never react with anything other than like positive, unless it's like a little jokey to get back at them. But I never stoop down to that level, because I love them, even though they're being a dick to me. I love them for who they are and for being part of me and for being that mirror. They're a part of me in a way that they are a me that I don't want. So they're showing
mm,
me this thing that I should avoid or not do, or this habit or this pattern that is bad. And it's like in that way, I love them and I'm thanking them for giving me the example of what not to do. So whether it's your friend or your enemy, you got to love them and exactly for who they are without really trying to change them or whatever, because they're doing something for you, whether it's a positive outcome or interaction, or they're just being this teacher, this reality teacher that's right there in front of your face saying, look it, I'm an alcoholic piece of shit and I have 3 DWIs. Are you really going to keep doing that? And when you see it and it clicks, you're like, oh man, I love you, but thank you, because you just taught me another thing. And in those ways, kind of like traveling, you can learn more in one journey like this, one 12-hour day walking through Amsterdam on truffles, than you could in 4 years at college. Because I've done
100%.
4 years of college and it didn't do anything near what this taught me, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, dude, I love it. It's I mentioned it too, the connectedness that you feel to everyone and everything is incredible. And
Mhm.
it's like we're not, we're really not. Like even if you look back in genealogy and like you look at like the science, like everyone came from the same female
Yeah.
dating back however long. So we are connected. But for some people it takes that drug, it takes psilocybin for you to actually feel it and recognize it.
Mhm.
But, you watch gurus and stuff like that, and it's like they're preaching this stuff all day long. And I don't know if it's they've learned it from psilocybin or if they just figured out life.
Yeah. You don't
But
know.
yeah, it's an important thing, dude. Psilocybin is an important compound and we can learn a lot from it.
For sure. 100%. And I guess, to cap off the story, in case anybody else wants to try this or whatever, this is not something that you just dive into unexperienced or uneducated. Like, I knew what I was doing, I knew dosage, I had tried and practiced before. You can be fine without doing that, I guess, with an open mind, a positive resolve, but you want to really know what you're doing first. And be aware, because when you're traveling someplace, I wouldn't do this, but Amsterdam's a very clean, very safe city that really caters to international tourists, and they're friendly, they're open, they're helpful. They, for the most part, all speak English. So it was like, really, there's not really a lot of risk of trouble. The worst thing that's going to happen is I'm going to get locked into a museum and be like, oh damn, and then kicked out. But I'm not worried about getting arrested or like, being in a safe situation where I might get robbed or anything like that. This entire neighborhood around me, after where eventually I'm going to only walk a mile home, the neighborhood around me was it was a mix of like the park, and then on one side near the castle, I'll never forget this, when you sit against the I Amsterdam sign, there's a castle to your center rightish that is like hundreds and hundreds of years old. And so it's very old and beautiful and rustic, right? But then immediately to your left, almost connecting into it, is like these very modern, like all glass front apartments, and then like a light rail system, like a really nice, almost bullet train looking subway that's like very clean and quiet and fast, and then a road right behind it where at the time in 2018 most of Amsterdam already has Teslas as their city taxis, because they adopted it and they bought thousands of them to make it more green. So when you get picked up by a taxi at the airport, it's a Tesla. It's either a Tesla or a nice Mercedes. So you just had this crazy clash of like castles from hundreds and hundreds of years ago in this old country, right next to brand new modern Teslas, like spaceship looking things, especially while you're tripping. Although they look like a spaceship and they have this hover sound to them. And it was crazy to see back and forth of like, wow, right here is like the divergence, or like, no, the convergence of the very present, if not almost the future, and like the past that still exists. And that was remarkable to sit and think about for a good 2 hours in the darkness too at the end of that trip. It was crazy.
Yeah, man. I'm just gonna tell people not to do it because people are gonna do whatever they want. But I don't want people to say that they did it because Paintball Nerd told them to. So don't do it. Stay away from
Don't.
drugs.
Yeah. Give me a sec. I'm gonna pause this because my microphone is about to die, like I said.
Okay.
So take a pee if you gotta. I'm gonna. Okay, we are back. Man, that was a fun tangent. That was the exact kind of conversation that I look for from these travel stories, because once again, paintball brought us there, but it's not about the paintball. It's about like that experience that we were gifted because of paintball. And yeah, that was sweet.
How many times have you been to Thailand?
Um, 3 times. Once back in 2011 with Shockwave Canada, um, won the PALS Open Pro Division, and got to be on this show that was kind of the inspiration for this. It was called Where Paintball Takes Us, and it's a
Mm.
multi like part video series on YouTube if you Google that in, and it's awesome. It's kind of doing what I want this to do, where that story you told or the one I told, hopefully the picture can or the listener can picture it like we brought them along with us. But this video series back then actually did it and showed us doing all this fun stuff and playing, partying, riding catamarans and sampans, and it was all of that. So that was the first big one, and then I went in 2015, and then 2018.
What's the craziest thing you've ever seen in Thailand?
Craziest thing I've ever seen. um okay, so all the craziest things I feel like I've done or seen in Thailand were in a place called Koh Phi, or maybe Koh Phi. I've heard it's pronounced differently. I'm sorry if I'm butchering it, but it's a very well known and famous island that's kind of touristy because people go there for a reason, but it's not like Disney touristy. If you go there, the people you see around you are like hippie backpackers, like, the people that they've been living out of their backpack for a year. And it is one of the islands in the chain of islands off of Pattaya, which is like the port city where, naval base is, but also like the red light district and all that. Well, a few islands away is this place called Koh Phi, uh, where it's most known for the full moon festival. And it just so happened that myself, Harrison, Ben Challenger, and the awesome Belgium guys from Breakout Spa were in that island during the festival. We were doing 2 days, a night and 2 days, or maybe 2 nights in each of these islands, just island hopping down the chain of islands. Must be like a dozen of or something like that. And in Koh Phi, we stayed the extra day because it was so sweet. Well, Koh Phi had this little satellite island off of it. That's not, you can't stay there. There's no structures, but you can take a little catamaran boat ride there for like $3. It's called Monkey Island, and it's like a little crescent shaped island. And I remember on Monkey Island, we had like a case of beer with us in my backpack. We were all in the water, and I saw monkeys come out of the woods, grab my backpack and zip it open, and then reach inside, open the case of beer, and then grab one of the beers out and crack it, and then chug the beers like they were frat kids. And I thought that was remarkable because I was like, that was a lot of smart things. I'm like running towards it now to save the bag. But the fact that they even knew how to open cans, and I saw one open a bottle too, and like chug it and then grab one for the road and run off with it to save it. And they would grab like bags of chips and snacks too, right? So I saw them do this. And then in this other area, a different island that was bigger and had like, mopeds and roads and all that. We mopeded to a certain spot, walked into the jungle because it just sounded crazy. Like we walked up this like stream coming out of the jungle. Me and a bunch of friends who were there at the time, and we're listening to all these ambiance. We're getting deeper into the jungle, and eventually there's just like this clearing. Like instead of being thick brush, the creek bed leads to like to the right was like this. I'd say probably about 100 by 100 square foot clearing, and in the clearing was a humongous pile of food litter.
Hmm,
Humongous, like
from the monkeys.
from the monkeys, and amongst it all were monkeys, as well as these little wild pigs, maybe size of like a Pomeranian, just these little pigs. And there's like 20, 30 of each, right? And we're looking and we're like, whoa, okay, these monkeys are smart enough that, like people, they don't just eat everything immediately, they save it for later. Because you saw like half bags of chips, half bottles of drink, like stood up kind of, so the liquid isn't pouring out, like balanced against stuff. And there was just all this surplus of food of all their munchies. We found their stash, right? And as we find it, we're looking around, we're like, this is awesome. We're just trying to be quiet and like enjoy watching them, the little pigs scooting through stuff. But like this troop of monkeys is coming in. We can hear them in the branches above us, coming in from like more behind us, but a little bit left. Straight behind us was like the beach we came in. Straight left was more deep jungle. And we hear them coming in. We look up and there's like dozens of them coming in. And there were a few big motherfuckers. Like there were some, the biggest ones are only maybe 3 feet, but these big alpha ones, if you know anything about monkeys, a 3 foot monkey will tear your limbs
Will
off. They're
destroy
so
you. Yeah,
strong.
kill you.
And even a smaller one will bite your face off. So they're like right over us, like the roof to your apartment. They're like that high above us in the treetops, and they're kind of looking like, you guys are in our fucking shit. You're invading, and we're all just like, okay, everyone, just like back out slowly. You know what I mean? Like be cool, just back out. So we're just backing out, being friendly, avoid eye contact with the real big muscular ones, and just like leaving. And some of them are freaking out. They're getting into that like, like
Yeah,
they're getting wild, and it's heart pounding, right? Because you're like, there's only a few of us, there's a lot of them, and I think even one of them would fuck up even one of us. So like, I just hope this doesn't go wrong. So we're backing out of this jungle and make it out. And I forget if it was the same day or the next day, but like one of these 2 days, I get to my moped and my moped has a fucking monkey on it. And because there's like no stealing in these areas, there's really not, like the locals are great. I would just leave shit at my moped. You know what I mean? So I get back and my moped, I always had the helmet hanging off it and the keys in the little cup holder where you could put a drink right behind the steering thing. And the monkey is sitting on the seat with my fucking moped keys. And we are way the fuck out there. And I'm like, oh my fucking God. I'm not too worried about losing the moped because I've destroyed many of them. We've talked about this and it's not much of a deposit. But if I lose this moped right now, getting back's going to suck. And in my athletic bag, all I had was like my phone, my wallet, and like some snacks and a water bottle. I'm like, fucking idea. I pull out like some kind of like Asian granola bar type thing situation. Just pull it down. It's like the movies, dude. I pull it down, take a bite of it. I'm like,
Mm.
like chewing, right? Hand it out to him. And luckily, after like a minute of the standoff, I barter the food for my keys from the monkey. He doesn't hand it to me, but he realizes he has to drop the keys to take it. And he does. And I just quickly grab the keys. And when I bend down, he jumps off and goes right off into that same tree path and is gone. I'm like, that could have been the monkey with my keys running into the trees. So that was wild.
Dude, I had monkeys raise up on me in Malaysia in Kota Kinabalu.
Hmm.
There was like big, thick forest, and right outside the forest tree line uh, was these. I think they were power lines or just some kind of cables hanging up. Um, but there was like one monkey hanging out on the wire, so I was like gesturing at the monkey and like messing with the monkey, like making monkey noises and like just messing with the monkey. And then I heard like all the noise and rustling in the trees, like monkeys screaming, and like I can hear like this wave of monkeys coming out of the thick forest. And so I'm messing with this one monkey, and then all of a sudden his buddies start jumping out of the trees and onto this line. And now the line has like there's two lines running parallel to each other, and they're just monkeys like flexing at me on both lines
Oh my
for
God.
yelling at their buddy. And like I knew right then, like, do not mess with these monkeys. These guys can kill you.
Hmm.
So I I conceded and I ran away from the monkeys. But, it's funny how, like,
So
they all came out of the trees and, like, stood with their boy, like, "What? Like, you know where you're at? You know what neighborhood you're in?"
yeah,
So
that is, they're scary creatures. They're sometimes I'm more afraid of them than anything else. I hate monkeys. People are like, "Oh, they're human looking," but I'm like, "This thing is too smart. It can use tools, and it is 10 times stronger than me." So
yeah.
I don't want to be near monkeys for the most part. But so aside from that, that's a good one, and that could be near death experience if you think about it. If they saw you flinch in the wrong way, they could attack you, and if you're alone, you're not making it out of there without a weapon. Even with a weapon, good luck, right? But beyond that, I've told you like my moped crash and whatnot. Do you have any while you were traveling abroad, while you were living there? Did What was your most like close to death or your most dangerous moment?
I don't know if I have, like, a dangerous moment, like, definitely not on a moped. I survived that. Like, people drive crazy in Taiwan, they don't really respect red lights or anything like that, like, if you have the opening, go.
Yeah,
Um, so there is accidents there, but I didn't get any on a moped. Um,
well, that's good because that answers
we
one segment I was gonna do. I'm gonna make a button for it where it's "Did you crash your moto?" I was talking to Harrison about this, but you didn't, so that's a plus.
Yeah, I wish I did now so I had the story. But kinda like there was a kinda like this dangerous place that we went to where people jump off the rocks and into the water, and I remember seeing, like, rebar and shit down there. I'm like, "How do people jump in here?" But I didn't jump in there. Like, the worst thing that ever happened to me was the flea story. That
Hmm,
was just, like, that was the absolute worst. But, never, like, risked my life really traveling abroad. I did
okay,
I did, when I was in Malaysia, I went out with a bunch of the guys, and they had some, like, bartenders come over. So this was a gross experience that I had,
okay.
and, like, like, he had, like, these girls come over, and they're, like, supposed to be hot girls or whatever, and all sexy and whatnot, and they brought me over this shot that had, like, whipped cream on it, and, and I was like, "Okay." 2 of them, one for one of these girls and one for me, and I took the shot, and the girl took the shot, and then I remember they had me lean my head back, and she, like, spit whipped cream into my mouth,
Oh,
and I was disgusted. I was like, "What the hell did like, what is this? Like, this isn't a shot or anything, like, this is just some nasty thing that you just did to me.
yeah,
Why the hell did this happen?"
and I don't know you.
Yeah, so I remember feeling like to the guys that I was, like, hanging out with, like, the Malaysian dudes, like, "Why did that just happen? Like, why that's not what I wanted. I'm really
Mhm.
grossed out right now, like, I don't wanna chill anymore." Um,
I'm gonna go
so
home. I'm gonna head
yeah,
out.
having some random girl spit whipped cream in your mouth from Malaysia, not cool.
Okay,
Um,
that's shitty. How
yeah.
about this? This isn't dangerous, like life threatening, but did you ever have one of those situations where in the middle or afterwards you're like, "Whoa, I put myself in a sketchy like social situation, whatever." Like, my example is because it's not all great when you travel out there. I've been shaken down by far too many random corrupt police officers in Central America and in Asia. Never really happens in Europe or Australia or anything. And I've also realized I've done some stupid things where I'm like, damn, I was completely alone there. Nobody fucking knows where I am in the world. And I just walked through a neighborhood that was kind of like not well lit, and there were some those characters that if it was going to happen and if I looked like a target, that would have been the moment. Like that was I should have been more aware because who knows what could happen. Did you ever
Yeah.
do anything like that?
I had one right when you were talking, and then I forgot what it was. Um,
The police?
oh, the police, right. So I was playing paintball in Baja Paintball, which is in Tijuana, when I was first playing with the Ironman,
Oh
and,
god.
I drove down there, or Yosh drove down there. I rode with Yosh, and on the way back, we were trying to get through the border, and he changed lanes when it was, like, a solid line instead of a broken line or something. I'm not even to this day, I'm not like convinced that he broke the law, right?
Yep.
But a cop saw us trying to change lanes and he pulled us over and um it was like illegal move or whatever. And Yoshi's like, "What? I don't understand. Like, what did I do?" And the guy's like, "Oh, you made an illegal move." And so he looks in the back, and we have paintballs in the back. And he's like, "What is that? What are those?" I'm like, "Oh, paintballs." And he's like, "Oh, my son plays paintball." And so we had to give the cop all of our paintballs to get out of the ticket.
Hmm.
And then I remember another time in Mexico, we bribed the police. We got pulled over with guys with like M16s and all that, and we had to actually give them
Yep.
money.
Been
We had to actually
there.
give them money, or else we were gonna
Yeah.
go to jail because paintball's illegal or something. Like they made up something like you're gonna go to jail. You're gonna go to
Yep.
jail right now, uh, unless you give us money.
Yep.
So I didn't have any money. Like Shane had some money with him. I think Brian had money. So we got out of that one. Um, but I don't have any like near death experiences. Like I've had some experiences in Thailand that I almost don't even want to talk about them. Like they're so uncomfortable. Like culture shock. Not even culture shock, just like wrong. Wrong things, right?
Share one. Share one. If you don't mind. It could be
Yeah.
the least of those.
Well, I would just say that the being exposed to seeing children in the sex trade
Hmm.
really was disturbing. Uh,
Yeah.
and you cannot avoid it in Thailand. You will see it.
And you can't
You
say
will
anything about it.
100%.
Yeah.
You can't. One of my teammates did. We were in Thailand on a jeepney, and it's like public transportation. It's like this little. It's like a bed of a pickup truck, and everyone sits in there, and they take you wherever you want to go. And there's this big old dude in the jeepney with this little Thai boy, and it's like his this little Thai boy is like his slave, and he's eating the sandwich, and he's having a little boy like wipe his mouth and stuff.
Yep.
And my teammate goes, "You're gonna have sex with this little boy, aren't you?" And the guy like pulls the thing and like tries to get off the jeepney right away. So he's like, "Hey, everyone, look at this guy. He's trying to have sex with this little boy." And it's like, I don't like, no one cared.
Nobody
Like that's
cares.
just no one cares. It's like children are in the they are sex workers there, and they're born into it, and it's fucking awful.
Yeah.
Um, and so uh, seeing that, and I saw some other things too that I won't talk about just because it's really sad.
Hmm.
It's really sad. Um, that is that's the negative side of seeing other cultures is like
Yes.
things that are unacceptable, things that are humanitarian issues, problems,
Yeah.
uh, seem to be accepted there.
Yeah.
And so that was something for me that was like a huge shock that I was like, "Oh my gosh." Like, when it's like, what can I do? Like,
Hmm.
like, what can I do to help these children? And there's nothing you can do. Like, that's what they do there. And it's just like,
Yeah.
so that's something I haven't shared yet about seeing certain, I have mentioned that I've seen some things in Thailand that made me uncomfortable. And that was it. Outside of like the shock value where like you're going through Pattaya and you see a girl sitting there with her legs crossed and then she opens them and a dick pops out. Like, oh, that's something new, but that's becoming more prevalent in the United States these days. But
Yeah.
back then in 2010 when I was in Thailand, like transgender wasn't a big thing. Like it was it was popular. Like ladyboys have always been a thing in Thailand, but to
Yeah.
see it is a shocker.
True.
It made me a little bit uncomfortable, but not as uncomfortable as seeing kids as servants and stuff like that. That's just like
Yep.
heartbreaking.
Yeah. Well, it sucks that these have to be things that we mention, but it's good you bring it up because um, a lot of people they think when we travel, it's all flowers and sunshine, whatever. and you do culture yourself, and you do get a lot of good benefits by being just there for a little while and leaving. But when you see some of these places where you're like, well, what if I lived here? And you realize
Yeah.
there's different values on a life in many
Yes.
different places. Like there's some
Yeah.
places where they'll kill instantly and it's not really a thought. It's like, whatever. You know what I mean? And in that place, it's not quite like that. But I remember that too. I remember being on the beach in Pattaya and seeing like, 70, 80-year-old like Russian or Australian or British dudes or whatever with like 10-year-old girls next to them,
Yep.
and you just knew that was their girlfriend or their wife, and that was why they moved there to do that, because they're like, you can't do shit to me here and you can't judge me, and this is what I want, and those kind of sick fucking bastards can live there. And it
Yeah.
takes every ounce of your willpower to not run up and fucking scream at them or kick the shit out of them, you know what I mean, or tell the kid to run or whatever. But you're like, that's not going to change anything, if anything, as soon as I leave, the kid's just going to come back because they have maybe
They need
no
to get
chance
paid.
without them or whatever. Yeah, like they're doing it for their family. And then like the lady boy thing, you're right. It's only till recent that like this transgender thing is a thing in this country, and whatever, you know what I mean? Like I try to have no judgment towards anything. I have no hate towards anyone, but it just wasn't a thing. I didn't know a single trans person growing up. I knew some gay people, but never trans, right? But
Yeah.
2011, I go to Thailand, and it was something like a third or a half of all like the working girls in those areas were trans, where
Hmm.
like we're walking around, me and the Canadian guys are with one local Thai player, and some of them would be like, oh, look at that girl, like thinking she's pretty enough, whatever. And the Thai guy would be like, lady boy, lady
Yep.
boy, lady boy. He'd point every other one and be like able to point them out. And we're like, really? Like the shockwave guys, some of them were even like surprised because it the really good looking ones, the ones where it's too good to be true, it wasn't. It was all plastic surgery or whatever. And we were like, how is this? Why is this? Why?
Yeah.
And this is something weird too. They were like, well, if you're born a boy here in Thailand and you're not in a middle class or upper class family, you really only have a couple options. Whereas if you're a girl, you can be a waitress or a bartender that gets good tips, or you can make great money off tourists being a sex worker. So do you want to just be like a janitor or like a basically bottom of the barrel working class guy that has literally no room for advancement? Or do you want to be one of these girls that maybe does this for a while, and after 5 or 10 years they've saved up enough to buy themselves their own house or buy their way out of the country or out of it? So
Yeah.
it's a lot of them, it's like a means to an end, which is
Awful.
horrific means to an end. But yeah, that was the eye-opening culture shock for me way back that first time.
Yeah. I remember seeing a, a lady boy. Like the first time I saw one was I mentioned, like you're walking through, Pattaya, and they got these like bars and stuff, and girls are sitting outside, and then like one uncrossed, and dick popped out, and you're like, whoa, that's a trip, you know. But then I saw others, and I'm like, that's not one. That's definitely a girl, and that's a pretty girl.
Yeah.
And someone was like, nope, nope, 100% lady boy, lady boy. Let's go ask. Sure
Mhm.
enough, sure enough, it was. And it's like, dang, man, like I think I'm a pretty good judge of that thing. But like over there, it's pretty like there's some that are pretty convincing, you know? And
Mhm.
they are not shy about it at all. Like,
No,
yeah, I'm a lady boy. Yeah.
they'll tell you.
Like,
Yeah.
whoa, that's a trip, you know?
Yeah.
So so, what you don't want to happen is you don't want to end up with a lady boy thinking that it's just a lady, and you'll find out that it's a lady boy the hard way. Right? That's what you don't want, which
Pun
has happened,
intended.
to people who I won't name, but it has happened.
Yeah, let's not name them. That's yeah. To protect their identity. That's
Yeah.
terrible. Geez. Yeah, that'd be a buzzkill of an evening in that moment. You think the date's going good, like shooting the shit at the bar or whatever, and then later on, yeah, surprise. That's not
Yeah,
cool.
but, what do you do at that point? Date's over, or, "Hey, I've come this far."
Oh, I guess that depends on yeah. the person.
Maybe
I'll,
I'll tell you. I'll tell you. I'll put some people on blast that you know
yeah, tell
off
me
air.
later. I got one for you too. Yeah. Yeah, I'd never give
Uh,
him shit for it anymore, but I mean, whatever. And you're right. At a distance, you're like, well, shit, would have fooled anybody, right? So,
yeah.
oh, crazy. What a crazy culture in so many ways. With that, with like a lot of it is way behind, but then a lot of other parts, like Bangkok, looks like a very futuristic, high-tech city.
Yeah.
But then when you're on the roads, it's like 4 lanes, but cars are driving 7 wide with tuk-tuks and bikes weaving between. And every
Yep.
given moment, you're like, we're going to run someone over, kill someone. But you never see an accident. It all seems to flow well. People let each other merge.
Like
And
bees
then
or ants.
the road speed limit is 30, but the left lane, there's nice sports cars doing 70. You're like, this is just such a wild, wild west world over here with what you can do and what you can't do. And like, it's a different type of freedom than America, you know? There's not the same freedoms, but then there's these other lawless freedoms.
I don't know how free America is. I feel like it's just a happy thing that we say, "Land of the free," but so many other countries have freedom, and they have more freedom than us.
I
So are we
agree,
really a
bro.
home of the free? Are we really like when you've traveled as much as you've traveled, Joe, you have to come to the conclusion, as I have, that there are other places that are a lot more free than the
Yes.
United States.
100%. So that I am happy you bring this up. This could be its own 10-hour podcast, honestly, because
Yeah,
once again, I don't I hope nobody thinks like, oh, fuck them. They're just anti-America, whatever. Because I'm proud to be an American, like what I
mhm,
truly think an American is, aka like what the founding fathers would have wanted, where
yeah.
like you raise the T tax 1%, we're tar and feather. And yeah, like I believe in what America stood for at one point, but this current soft, weird America um, has a lot of problems. And one of them is that, System of a Down used to say it. They're trying to build a prison. And now I get a lot of that more, where I'm like, okay, from what I understand from slavery back in the day, you worked, but it wasn't like you just had nothing. Like they were provided food, guaranteed shelter, whatever. And when you read like slave diaries, like I had a class about that in early college, it wasn't all just being whipped and shit like that. That was the bad plantation owners, but a lot of them were allowed to like have parties, weekends off, marry, start families that stayed there, all of that, right? Well, the only difference between that and a lot of average people nowadays is the medium. Like you go to work, which they went to work 8 hours a day, they did 8 hours a day, and you're paid. But then what do you do with that cash? You buy your living and your food. And then there's just enough extra to pay for the distractions, the bread and circus, your TV, going to see a sports game once every few weeks. And there's enough things to make you feel like, oh, I chose this. I'm loving it. But like if you broke it down, like I always realize anytime I'm like camping for a week or so, where I'm like, man, no matter what, I have to pay to live. You know what I mean? I didn't get to choose that. And if I wanted to like go off into the wilderness in the middle of Montana right now with all my survival skills, build a structure, make fires, collect rainwater, I can't. I literally can't. I will be taken from that spot and told you must leave right now, or I will be thrown in prison, or I will be told I have to pay fines if I disconnect from PG&E or like the water. You're like, oh, I have my own. I have solar. And they're like, sorry, you still got to pay. So there is kind of like this. I once again, I appreciate all America is. I appreciate flushing toilets and like a general safe feel, I guess. Although I've been robbed at gunpoint every time here in this country and never by a random stranger in other countries. But anyways, I appreciate it all, but at the same time, the veil is lifted when I traveled that in other places they have these freedoms that we don't have, where they're not just stuck in the rat race.
Where'd you get robbed?
I've been robbed in Niagara Falls when I lived there. That is actually like a crack capital of the Northeast. There's the 2 blocks of like the falls itself and the casino. And then the avenues behind that, first through 50th, are horrific. Like I
Hmm.
remember living there, and occasionally you'd hear an entire clip of Uzi get dumped in the middle of the night. And the next day you'd drive a block or two over and you'd find that car just Swiss cheesed. You know,
Wow.
it's a bad neighborhood. So I've been robbed there. I've been robbed in uh, Newark, New Jersey, not a
Hmm.
good place, and also South Philly, which is not a good place.
Yeah.
And then I've been robbed
You've been
not
robbed in
in
all the places you should be robbed.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. It would only be a matter of time before it would have happened to me when I was in Flint playing with 810. It's happened to me almost by knife in my house when I lived in Auburndale, which is like a trailer park area, dead central Florida, below Lakeland. And fortunately, I've never had to live in like Compton or Oakland or any of those. But I've had sketchy run throughs in what's that area near Sacramento, Stockton, as well as
Mm.
Bakersfield. So I've been through it all, but it's
That's
been in
crazy.
this country, not in other countries. Other countries, it's some police officer just shaking you down, and really, once you give them the money on you, they let you leave. You know,
Yeah.
it's there's no violent part about it.
Yeah. I've never been robbed, period, much less at gunpoint. That's gotta be, knock on wood. That's gotta be a scary experience, dude.
It's sobering, that's for sure. In that moment, it's adrenaline, but not a uncontrollable. It's like a crystal clear, like I value my life more than anything I have on me or this car. I'm just gonna like, hey buddy, you say moving slow, take whatever's you need. Please just don't shoot me. Like take your finger off the trigger, please. Don't accidentally sneeze and shoot me in the face. Um, but after those moments, there is always like this, you know, extreme appreciation for life. Or anytime
Yeah.
I walk away from it, I've always been like, oh, there's that second shot. You know what I mean? I need to do better this year or like forever after this because that could have went a worse way.
Yeah. Jeez.
Gives you
Well,
gratitude.
I don't know if I have any more I'm sure I have more stories, but I feel like I need you to dig them out of me.
I'm a good digger, but I wouldn't want to keep you on here for 4 hours getting all of them. So I'll have you back on. I'll
There we
reach out
go.
to you and be like, do you remember next ones? But some things I wanted to ask you before you leave, we're not done yet, but rather than more stories is kind of like more of the deep dives. And these are what I love about this is more than just like the surface level, the travel and like the adventure part of the story. But I've said this the last few podcasts. Um, when you travel, I've always found that I get to culture myself and I learn a lot about my external world. I learn the way things are rather than the way they're portrayed to me in media or books. But every single time I travel, I learn more about myself. Like I learn more about because it's just you out there. You don't have your typical routine of what you entertain yourself with or what's safety to you. You're out there by yourself and it's on you now. So if you thought you were a partier here, but over there you realize you're worried or anxious to go party alone, turns out you were actually more introverted than you thought, or like
Yep.
there's these like insecurities, right? And so I've learned a lot about me, like what my actual characteristics, my what I resonate with, and what things I actually gravitate towards. Like, would I rather be out in the nature or would I rather see the cities? Would I rather do nightlife or would I rather go to museums and see art or monuments or statues, right? So my question is, what did you find you learned about yourself, let's say in Taiwan first?
Well, I talked about it a little, but what I learned about myself is that I wasn't able to live in the moment the way that I should.
Mm,
Um, and it took me a year of living in Taiwan to actually discover that, like, and looking back on all my experiences in Taiwan, and also looking back at the attitude that I had of, man, I'm homesick. I want to go back to San Diego where the weather's nice and the air is clear,
yeah.
and having that like kind of regret of, I wish I had a better attitude about this. I don't necessarily wish I did something different. I just wish I stopped fucking complaining about being not being in San Diego,
Yeah.
and just, And I remember Jeremy Clinsmith. He lives in he's from South Africa. He lives in India right now, or no, somewhere. I don't know where he lives. Bali maybe. Um, I was complaining one day, and he goes, "Hey man, like, look where you're at." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "Look where you're at." And I'm like, "I'm standing on the street in Taiwan. What are you talking about?" And he goes, "Dude, you are living in another country right now because of paintball.
Hmm.
The company moved you out here on their dime. They pay for your expenses. Look where you're at." I was like, "How come you didn't tell this to me 8 months ago?
Yeah.
How come we didn't have this tough conversation 8 months ago? I've been
Yeah.
sitting here having this bad attitude the whole time about how I miss San Diego." And, that was one of the conversations where I was like, "I need to learn to live in the moment and appreciate where I'm at and what I'm doing
Yeah.
and the experiences that I have." So, the biggest thing that Taiwan taught me, or moving to Taiwan taught me, was that, like, don't worry about the past, don't worry about the future, live in the moment and get everything out of the moment.
Amen, brother. That is well said. I am so about that. So you say, I mean, that's like one of my favorite things to preach is just be present.
Be
And
present.
I'm happy that that was one of the things you learned about yourself. Like it sucks that it was late, but it is cool that since it was glaring you in the face, you were like, ah, I'm bad at being here. I'm thinking too
Yeah.
much about what I'm going to do later or like reaching success or whatever it is. So many people are caught up in that. They're thinking about tomorrow or they're dwelling on yesterday. And wake up and smell the roses or look around, smell the whatever it means. That literally means what it means. Like stop and just enjoy the now, like, yeah, plan for the future. Yeah, undo mistakes from the past, but like you only have this one moment. And if there wasn't for the sun setting and the moon, it would all be one day, right? There really is no time. So choose to like see that you only have right now. A tree could fall and kill you the next second. So live the fuck out of that now. Like really every day you should go to sleep and feel like I was the best I could be and I tried to do as much of what I wanted to do that didn't harm others this day.
Yeah, and when you live in the moment, it also gives you the ability to seek out the reason to say yes to
Mm,
experiences, to things. When you're living in the moment, you look for those opportunities where the answer can be yes. So that's
yes.
another piece of advice that I give to people that are traveling abroad. Say yes. Say yes to experiences. Say yes to eating the scorpion. Eat the stinky tofu.
Yeah.
Try it. Say yes. Do it, and see who you come out, on the other side as.
Did you ever see that movie Yes Man, the Jim Carrey movie?
Mhm. Yeah.
I was already doing all this stuff, just learning to say yes to every opportunity and experience when I travel. But I wish I had seen that movie before because it would have got me to do it earlier. Because it's exactly what you're saying, where it's just like today, I'm not going to have fears or insecurity. If so and so, if a random stranger says like, "Well, I'm about to go here, you want to go?" Just be like, "Fuck it." Rather than being so concrete to your plans, you just go. And when you do this while traveling, especially me and Harrison know this hack well when you land somewhere and you didn't even book a hotel and you have no plan, it always turns out the best because you end up waking up on some stranger's couch who invited you to come over and have dinner and see their local area the way they see it. And they
Mhm.
fed you and then they gave you a place to stay and it saved you money too. And it was all because you were like, today, rather than trying to set a plan and sticking to it or having an agenda, I'm just going to see what comes naturally in the flow of life. I'm going to ride the river and I'm going to go, yep, okay, yeah, I'll try that. Sure. Yeah, thanks for the invite. Or
Yep.
here's this food, I'll try it. Or whatever it may be. So, yeah, dude, I appreciate that. And I guess the part B to that question would be, did you ever consciously while traveling work on yourself in something? Like you used this, hey, I'm going to Amsterdam and I'm going to practice my communication. I'm going to work on my social skills. I'm going to work on practicing this language, things like that.
I While I lived in Taiwan specifically, I wanted to learn more about the origin of all things. So, um, I had my sister send me this book called A Brief History in Time by Stephen Hawking. I had to look at my bookshelf to make sure I had the name right. Um, because I told you about my experience with with finding and believing in God,
Mhm,
but that came with a lot of analytics too. Like, okay, like did I just have this psychedelic experience? Like, how can I try and prove this to myself?
mhm,
So one of my journeys out, when I moved to Taiwan was really trying to understand the scientific end of things. So I had my sister send me A Brief History in Time by Stephen Hawking, and I learned about his scientific perspective of the origin of things in the universe. And what I discovered was it sounds a lot like Genesis in the Bible, the first book of the Bible.
mm,
Stephen talks about in the beginning there was nothing, it was void, there was nothing. And then in an instant, everything exploded. All the matter that we know in the universe exploded into existence in this violent, beautiful explosion known as the Big Bang. And everything that we know exploded into existence in that moment. And before that, it was in this infinitely small, compressed point, just infinitely small, and no one could see it. So I thought, in Genesis, it says, in the beginning, there was nothing. And God spoke, and everything was created. And I thought, Stephen Hawking wrote a book about this, a science book about this, but like it says this in Genesis.
yeah.
So, so that's one of the things I was doing was I was trying to make sense of God and creation from a scientific perspective, and I thought if I kind of immersed myself in the scientific ideology of how the world was created, it would either strengthen my belief or weaken it, and it strengthened it.
Wow, that is cool. Okay, that's a different answer than most people give me, but I like that. That's an important thing to work on or work towards understanding. So that's very cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I guess, I don't want to, man, I could literally keep talking to you or ask endless stories, questions about stories for forever. And
You got one more? We can do one more.
um, I save it for a sec because there's a few quick, easy questions. I'm more like getting into this like long form, like just conversation, but I do have some questions that I think are fun and important to ask. So let me bring up my list real quick. And these are simple ones, like, in Taiwan, simple one. What was the currency? How much was it worth compared to the dollar? Just a fun way for people to understand how much you're balling out when you're over there.
Okay. So in Thailand,
So I know Thailand, but Taiwan,
sorry,
is it even
Taiwan,
cheaper? Yeah.
yeah, it's still called dollars.
Oh, okay.
Um, and I think 1,000 Taiwan dollars was like $30, 30 American dollars.
Okay, so similar to bot, similar to the
Similar to
Thai
bot.
bot.
Yep.
Yeah, same,
Yep.
it's about the same. I remember every time I dropped a grand, it was 30 bucks. So, okay. That's good. Um, let's see here. I've already asked a lot of these questions in roundabout ways. Your perspective changes, all that. Um, do you think you'd ever have gone to either of those places if not for paintball?
Nope. No
Never would have even
chance.
had interest going to them.
I would have had interest. I would be in a place right now in my life where I have extreme wanderlust and I
Yeah,
want to go everywhere. And I really got that out of my system
yeah,
to a point when I was living in Taiwan and I was traveling every weekend to another event in Southeast Asia, I was done. I was like, I'm tired of living out of a suitcase.
yeah,
I want to
yeah.
just stay in one place. So, um, the challenge is my wife has wanderlust and she wants to go places.
Mm,
And now that I'm working with Go Sports, I'm gonna be traveling a lot more. So,
mhm.
So it's cool because I kind of have the travel bug again. I'm kind of excited about doing it.
That's cool. And that's a good
Yeah,
answer. And that's also perspective eye opening for me as well because um, how old are you?
39.
So about 40. So you're saying you got it all out of you. And I feel like you are a me of the generation above me. Like you and your
Mm,
generation of pros is the one above me. And you did exactly the path I'm on, where like I'm trying to like see every country and play every event on my bucket list before about 40ish, maybe a give or take a year or a few years or whatever, but roughly 40. And then I can at that point know like, hey, if I'm done with playing at the elite level, I'm okay with walking away from this because I've exhausted it all. I'm
yeah,
very conscious and aware of that, of like, I do not want to have kids before then. Not that I haven't seen people have it done, but like I really want to make sure that I don't half-ass raising kids. And once again, I've seen people do both, but for me personally, I'm an all-in guy. So like when I'm at that stage of life, if I want to do that, I want to be fully in.
yeah,
And since I'm fully in this, I want to know that I've checked every box and accomplished all I wanted before I move on. So like the wanderlust is strong within me right now. I've only seen like, I don't know, 30 or 40 countries or something like that. Not a lot, and there's a lot in the fucking world, and there's a few leagues and events that I've not been to. So I am doing what you had already done. And when I'm your age, I could be like, okay, I'm good. I'm ready to like sit comfortably in San Diego or somewhere beautiful. Or for me, it's probably going to be Southeast Asia, where I'll buy my house for a fraction of the cost.
hmm.
And the money that I've made leading up to then will far quicker retire me than doing it here in the rat race.
Dude, when you're my age, you will have. I mean, you have already traveled a lot more than I have. Been a lot more countries. So I mean, if you quit traveling today, you will still have traveled more than 99% of the human population. 99.9% of the human population.
That's interesting.
So
Yeah. And all for paintball, right? It's like the thing
for
you said
paintball.
where I've always wanted to be a traveler when I was a kid. I always wanted to see new place and do new stuff. But I saw the way my parents were stuck in their thing where they had money to do it, but they only got 2 weeks vacation time a year. And
Yeah.
that was dreadful to me. That looked like prison itself, where I'm like, oh my God, even if I get a six-figure job being a doctor or whatever, I'm just great. I'll get 2 weeks a year to go to like Cancun or somewhere close enough. But it's gonna, you only live so many years. In 50 years, I'm not gonna see enough. I'm not gonna see enough of each country I go to. And I'm gonna miss a lot of the world before I die. And I think the best treasure in this world is like experience and seeing it all. Like you're not taking the money with you. So I was just like, that doesn't seem like enough for me. And
Yeah.
paintball is my passport to everywhere. And
Nice.
yeah, it's been fucking
Nicely
sweet
done.
for me, for you, for all of us lucky enough to do it, for the Montressors who inspired me and a lot of us, for all those guys who were pioneering it and doing it when it was wild, wild westish.
Mm.
Um, yeah, it's just fucking amazing. So, good answer. The next thing I was going to ask you was, are you one of those people where every time you've been somewhere, you do blank thing, you're like, oh, I gotta try the local beer, or I have to go see the monument, or like the not tourist trap, but like the big sightseeing thing, or what is it you always do when you travel?
I do have the thing where it's like I have to go eat at this place XYZ when I go
Mhm.
to back home to San Diego. It's like I gotta get an In-N-Out burger, I gotta get a California burrito, I gotta go to City Tacos. Like I gotta get certain foods in me when I go to San Diego. I don't
Yeah.
have that when I travel like abroad places. It's not like, it's like, oh, I'm in Thailand, so I gotta have a scorpion.
Okay.
Um,
That's
um,
fair.
but I have to experience something, right? I have like, especially now after the the revelation that I've had about being in the moment. It's like I got to do something touristy. I got to experience something. I got to take a photo of it.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's definitely that.
I get it. No, I always feel like I have to find one of those like stories that I'll never forget because I immersed myself in something. Like I
Mm,
sat down with locals or tried to get invited to like someone's like tradition, like a cultural thing. One of those things that you can't
I like
buy
that.
as a tourist on the go-go bus. Like you'd have
Yeah.
to actually be walking around and connecting with people for them to be like, "Hey, why don't you come here with us? Come over to the the hidden gem or like the locals secret." So that's
You
what I
get that
try to
in
do.
paintball. Like, you do not get that as a tourist unless you're
100%.
really, like, good at being, social butterfly.
Mhm.
But in paintball, you get these opportunities to experience the culture the way that the locals experience it. Like you said, go have dinner at their house or go to their favorite restaurant, and you're not gonna read about these restaurants on Yelp because
Mhm.
tourists don't go to them. So, a lot of people don't know that, like, paintball is a way to experience cultures in a way that tourism cannot provide.
100%. Even if you were rich, you
Yep,
cannot buy some of the experiences that we've gotten. And hopefully, players that are divisional and are trying to get out there or go pro to do it, chase it for that reason because it's the best perk we have. Nobody's
yep.
making millions doing this. And hopefully, if people find this podcast that are non-players, they hear these stories and they go, "Whoa, my little nephew Jeremy's been saying he wants to get into paintball. I think I support that now because it seems like these dudes live a very interesting lifestyle, like
Yeah,
a very out of the box one." So
that's right.
that's cool. Is there any particular like thing you always get? Like, I'm not talking fridge magnets that say Tulum on it, but like, are you a person where you're like, "Ooh, we don't have this type of like cloth or material back home. I got to get the locals t-shirt or not shirt, but like their type of apparel or style or do you get
I wish.
anything?"
I don't even get souvenirs usually, just
Wow.
pictures.
Cool, cool. You don't even shop for the dirt cheap souvenirs because it's a good way to like holiday shop for your family and send it home?
No. I bought my
Oh,
mom a set of clogs, when I went to Amsterdam,
nice.
but I don't have, like, any shot glasses or little magnets or souvenirs or, like, even cooler things like you mentioned, like T-shirts made from their local fabrics. I should start that, Joe. I'm gonna start doing that. In fact, when I go to Vegas, in a couple months, I'm gonna buy a souvenir just because of this conversation.
I'm not no, I am the least materialistic person. Everything I own could fit in the trunk of my car. I don't believe in just buying shit because, but like if you're in, let's say, South America or Asia and you're wearing a cotton t-shirt, you are fucking wet. So you have to buy, and luckily they're only $3 to $5, the local stuff that's like made out of like bamboo because it breathes better. It's better
Hmm,
for living in that environment. So anytime I travel somewhere, I don't really bring much. I might bring a couple pairs of clothing, mostly boxers, but when I get there, I buy my couple of shirts for the trip there, and
smart.
yeah, it's great.
That's
I'll
high
even get a
level.
nice I'll get a nice dress shirt sometimes for like the night out, and it's like it looks sweet. Locals will even compliment you and be like, "Ah, that's the style. That looks good on you." And it's
Yeah,
not whatever they call it where you're like taking their culture. They don't give a fuck. They love it. They're like, "Very cool."
yeah.
So
Way to
I like
represent.
that. Now, this is my probably my favorite segment. Um, I gotta have a button for this too. But have you ever been gringoed? And let me explain that. Gringoed, Harrison always coined this, is a gringo is like the obvious touristy white person that like when you get to Mexico, rather than going out and seeing or experiencing real Mexico, you I'll do my first example, first ever time. You take the fucking stupid guided tour through the resort that ends in a 2-hour meeting for a timeshare just because you're like, "Oh, I'll get a free buffet and I'll get to sit at the pool." But you did the stupid trap that they set up for you, like Americans that they think have money, or they scam you, or they overcharge you. Like you hear them charging you more than one of the locals when you're like buying food or novelty stuff in the streets. Have you been gringoed?
Yeah, I was, trying to buy a fake Rolex in Malaysia, and the guy tried to tell me it was real, and he wanted, like, all this money, and I'm like, "I don't think this is real because you walked up to me in a jacket and, like, went like this and showed me all your watches." So I've had, like, people try and take advantage of me, but
Okay.
I didn't fall for it. Um, I got not related to paintball, I got gringoed on my honeymoon and ended up doing a timeshare presentation to get a helicopter ride. So I have been gringoed, by your definition, but not from paintball.
Okay. Oh, surprising. I feel like everyone I know has been gringoed on a paintball trip, so that's cool. Um, last few things here are, is there something you always bring with you? Like you have to have this while you travel. I don't mean passport, phone, whatever, but like, for example, people have said, little Ben said he brings an athletic bag. That way, when he wants to walk around, has a few extra things on him, he has it, but he's not carrying his full size backpack. He can leave it at the hotel. Something that makes
Mm.
your life easy while you travel.
Hmm.
Pocket knife.
Theragun.
Theragun.
I have this little pocket Theragun. It's like this little triangle. So
Yep.
it's like a portable, more portable version of the Theragun. Lately, I've been bringing that everywhere I go because it's a lifesaver on the feet. I always got hats with me. Um,
Yep.
I always try and bring a pocket knife. So you
Same.
put a pocket knife in your luggage, and as soon as you land, you take it out, put it in your pocket because you never know when you're going to need a pocket knife.
True. Survival, safety, I agree. I'm a
Yep.
person who's the same. I've learned now to buy them there because almost every other time I fly, I forget that my pocket knife is in my carry-on backpack.
Yep.
And normally the TSA pulls it out and goes, "What's this? We got to keep
And they
this." And I
take
go, "No, please, it's just my avocado knife. Like that's all it's for is cutting avocados. Don't take my avocado knife." And they're just like, "You cannot take this, dude." And then whatever people I'm traveling with laugh their asses off at me because it's happened too many fucking times now.
when I played paintball, it was like always my headband, my white skull headband, Sandana
Mm,
white skull headband that I'd bring everywhere.
that's good. Yeah, some nostalgia, some good juju. Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have any travel tips, travel hacks, travel perks, things that would make people's life easy, whether it's in that place or in like the long, long flights to get to those places? What's something cool you've learned?
Never exchange your money. Don't exchange your money. Use a debit card
Hmm.
or a credit card because the bank will translate it for you with the best rates. So don't use the
100%.
cash changing people because you pay a fee for that and it ends up being expensive. If you can play paintball and travel that way and then make friends that live in the location that you're traveling and have them show you around. Don't go do touristy shit. That's touristy shit. You're not going to actually experience the place that you want to experience being a tourist. You're
Yep.
going to experience it by being a local.
Yes.
So connect with the locals, hang out with the locals, and make friends. Have a good time with the locals.
Nice.
Use the buddy system,
Hmm.
right? Always use. It's if you're going to get robbed with a friend, right? It's always better. You
Hmm.
might even avoid getting robbed if you have a friend with you. So, like, even if a place seems relatively safe, I'd always use the buddy system. So, and live in the moment. We've already covered a lot of that, but that's my
Yeah.
final advice is to be in that freaking moment, be present and live that.
Very well done. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. A quick recap, in the moment, buddy system, especially if you're not experienced or till you are, be safe and aware of your environment. And the first one, get the fuck
Cash
out of the
change.
tourist bubble.
Yeah,
Don't stay at the goddamn all-inclusive resort. Because it doesn't
don't
matter
do it.
what country in, if you are at the all-inclusive resort being waited on hand and foot, did you really even go to that country or see the culture? You were basically in this little satellite version of the US that you had to fly across the world to. So
Yeah,
fuck that shit. Get out there and be in the thick of it and immerse yourself.
immersion. Yeah, yeah, you get it.
Do I ever? Well, excellent, dude. I mean, I got a million more questions, but those are all the important ones. And I've really enjoyed this conversation. I mean, we've talked a bunch, but this was the first time we got to sit down and like, just vibe out and talk about the important shit. And Zyzek, you're a very interesting dude, intelligent, but also, as grounded and like normal in many ways as you are, you're also very kind of like open and hippie minded. And yeah, I'm proud to know you, dude, because you're doing a lot for paintball, and I love what you do with Paintball Nerd. I love that you're now connected to Go Sports. I didn't realize that that was a perk of when I just got on your last show. I was like, holy shit, this is on Go Sports now that we're talking about this. It's not just
Yeah.
another homies podcast. It's like on the front page of where all the matches are. So I love that you're doing that, and it's big for the sport, and you're killing it. So shout out to Paintball Nerd and Go Sports, and to all the other podcasters and content creators, and you know the voice of it all, Maddie Marshall, and everyone who's doing so much to like try to share this sport and push it to the next level. Just yeah, grateful for all of it.
Cool. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you very much. Any shout outs? Anybody you want to thank? Anything you need to say?
I'd like to thank my wife for putting up with me as I pursue my dream to re-enter the paintball industry. And comes with its trials and tribulations. But thank you to my wife, Megan. And I love you, Zyzek and Zia, my kids. And hey, keep playing paintball, everyone. Paintball's awesome. I love paintball. You should love paintball too. That's it.
Fuck yeah, dude. Well, hope everyone out there enjoyed their trip. Thank you for checking in. And yeah, stay a paintball
I see
nerd.
what you did there.
Yeah, you like that? I'm still working on it. You know, I got to find something, but it's coming. It's coming along.
Thank you for keeping your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. We've reached our destination.
Please don't fucking stand up until we are at the gate and they tell you to, you idiots. And that's all.
Yeah, don't rush for the door. If you're sitting in the back, don't be that guy. Okay? You're not going to get off the plane sooner. Just wait. Wait until the person in front of you exits, right?
Yes.
If you got to
Don't.
stand up, fine. If you're sitting in the aisle, fine. Stand up. But don't try and make your way down the aisle. Don't be a savage.
100%.
You know these guys. You know these people, right?
I hate them. My biggest plain pet peeve, other than those horrible parents that don't do anything to calm down their crying or screaming obnoxious kid, and you want to run over there and like smack the parent or tell them you're going to parent for them if they don't start. Whole other can of worms. Anyways, thank you
Quick,
so
quick,
much,
quick on
Isaac.
that. Quick on
Yeah,
that. Just real quick on that, and then we'll be done.
sure.
Carry gummy bears with you. Okay. If you're a parent that has a child and you're planning on traveling with that child, bring gummy bears with you. But for you, Joe, also bring gummy bears, because if you encounter a counting child, it's likely because they're experiencing this pressure on their ears and they don't know what the fuck is happening. So they're crying. So give them some gummy bears. They'll chew the gummy bears and it'll cause their ears to crack and it'll relieve the pressure from the airplane.
Smart.
And that's why the kids cry. It's because they don't know what the hell's going on. So parents, gummy bears, travelers, frequent travelers, gummy bears if you want to avoid noisy kids, and buy some noise canceling headphones. Don't expect the world to tiptoe around you. Right?
Yeah, that's true.
Get some headphones. All right, that's it.
All right, well done. Thank you, bro. Much love.
Yeah, later, buddy.
Later.